This evening, you'll uncover a transformative secret that Buddhist monks have relied on for centuries to calm the restless mind and achieve profound restful states. I'll share 10 extraordinary Zen stories that have assisted countless individuals in quieting their racing thoughts, allowing them to slip into the most tranquil sleep they've ever experienced. Each tale provides a crucial insight that reveals your mind's inherent ability to let go of stress and anxiety. Here's what sets these teachings apart from typical sleep meditations. They are effective even if you have never practiced meditation. Regardless of how relentless your thoughts may be, even if every method you've tried has failed, the Buddha once expressed, peace comes from within. Do not seek it without. In the coming 3 hours, you will learn precisely how to interpret this wisdom and implement it in your life. As we traverse stories filled with empty vessels, wise monks, and unexpected revelations, you may notice something remarkable occurring. Tension will begin to dissipate, thoughts will tranquilize, and you will find yourself gently sinking into a state of deep relaxation. So, make yourself at ease. Adjust your pillow. Allow your body to feel heavy against the bed. Let's take a deep breath together now. And as you exhale, recognize that you have just embarked on a journey that has awaited you since the dawn of time. Let's dive into our first story. The initial story unfolds by a serene river where an important lesson about our reactions lies in wait. This is the tale of the empty boat. A man once reveled in rowing his boat along the tranquil river, finding immense joy in gliding over the water while embracing nature's peace and solitude. Every evening, bathed in golden light as the sun dipped below the horizon, he would embark on a soothing expedition in his boat. One such evening, as he paddled gently and soaked in the calm, he spotted another vessel moving directly towards him. Initially, he shouted out courteously, "Be careful." But the approaching boat did not alter its trajectory. Growing increasingly frustrated, the man cried out, "Get out of the way. You're about to hit me." The once peaceful evening morphed into anxiety as he watched the other boat draw nearer. At last, as their boats collided, he was primed to unleash his anger on the reckless sailor. However, upon closer inspection, he discovered the boat was empty. There was no one aboard. It was merely drifting along with the current. In that instant, the man's fury vanished. He sat there feeling ridiculous for yelling at a vessel with no occupant. What shifted? Not the incident itself. The boats still clashed. The change resided in his comprehension. There was no malice behind the collision, nor any disregard to fuel his anger. The Buddha once remarked, "You will not be punished for your anger. You will be punished by your anger." This profound insight is beautifully illustrated in the story of the empty boat. Our irritation, frustration, and resentment frequently arise not from the events themselves, but from the narratives we construct concerning intentions behind those events. Why do we respond in this manner? Within Zen Buddhism, this reactive behavior emerges from our ego's attachments. Our deep-rooted need to defend and validate a separate self. When a driver cuts us off, our ego perceives it as a personal offense. How dare they disrespect me? The ego fabricates a storyline where we occupy the central role, casting others as either friends or foes. Reflect on how many times throughout your daily life you encounter empty boats. instances where you ascribe harmful intent that doesn't exist. The motorist who cut you off could be racing to the hospital. Your colleague who overlooked your greeting might be dealing with a family crisis. The friend who hasn't replied to your text could be coping with depression. Yet, our ego swiftly fills these voids with assumptions of ill will, negligence, or disrespect. In Zen practice, we nurture an awareness of this tendency through mindfulness. By witnessing our thoughts without immediate attachment, we can intercept ourselves while filling empty boats. We can recognize the physical manifestations of anger surfacing, tightness in the chest, quickened breath, narrowing vision, and use these signals as mindfulness bells, prompting us to pause and examine. The 13th century Zen master Dogen conveyed that to study the way of the Buddha is to study oneself, and to study oneself is to forget oneself. When we release our ego's relentless requirement to assert and protect, we perceive empty boats for what they genuinely are, mere occurrences flowing through the vast river of existence without personal significance or intention behind them. The Buddha taught, clinging to anger is akin to grasping a hot coal with the intent of throwing it at someone else. You are the one who suffers. Each time we react with anger, we are the first to experience the pain. By recognizing the empty boats in our everyday interactions, we free ourselves from this self-imposed suffering. This evening, as you contemplate your day, remember a moment when you felt wronged or upset. Can you identify the empty boat in that instance? Do you see how your own thoughts filled that void with assumptions and judgments? And in that realization, can you feel the liberation that comes from letting go? As the Buddha asserted, peace originates from within. Do not seek it externally. The serenity we yearn for is already accessible when we cease filling empty boats with the narratives constructed by our ego. Now, let us proceed to a mountain trail where a monk confronts an unforeseen challenge in the tale of the monk and the tiger. Once, in a tranquil mountain monastery hidden deep within the woods, there existed a sage and serene monk. Each day, he embarked on long strolls through the nearby forests, meditating on the splendor of nature and the Buddha's teachings. He found immense peace in the seclusion of the woods, allowing him to connect with the essence of his surroundings. The monk and the tigers. In a moment of tranquility, a monk was deeply engaged with the present and the beauty of nature surrounding him. While walking along a secluded mountain trail, he was suddenly interrupted by a jarring roar that echoed ominously through the trees. Paralyzed for a brief second, he felt his pulse quicken as he turned to face a formidable tiger barreling toward him through the dense underbrush. The fierce gaze of the animal locked onto him, and its muscular form moved with alarming swiftness. Driven by instinct, the monk took off running, his robes fluttering dramatically behind him as the tiger closed in. In his frantic flight, he spotted a vine cascading down the side of a steep cliff. Without a moment's thought, he seized the vine and began descending, yearning for safety below. However, as he looked down, a wave of despair washed over him. Another tiger was lurking at the bottom, pacing back and forth as if waiting for him to fall. He found himself in a dire predicament. No route upward and no escape downward. Suspended from the vine with a tiger looming above and another below, the monk felt a sense of hopelessness wash over him. Yet, despite this dire strait, something unexpected caught his attention. Clinging to the cliff face, tantalizingly close, was a wild strawberry plant with a single ripe berry glistening in the light. In that pivotal moment, the monk momentarily set aside his fear of the two tigers and the circumstances he faced. Instead, he extended one hand, gently plucked the strawberry, and brought it to his lips. As he savored its lush sweetness, his senses were enveloped in pure delight. For that fleeting instant, nothing mattered but the exquisite flavor of the fruit, sweet, refreshing, and utterly perfect. Amid the peril surrounding him, the monk found a pocket of tranquility within that brief, mindful experience. He recognized that although he had no control over his immediate circumstances, he could, nonetheless, immerse himself fully in the now. A smile crept upon his face as he absorbed the fleeting taste of beauty amidst adversity. This moment served as a poignant reminder of the world's simplicity and splendor, no matter how challenging the situation might appear. The Buddha imparted wisdom with the words, "Do not dwell in the past. Do not dream of the future. Concentrate the mind on the present moment." This adage resonates at the heart of the tale of the monk and the tigers. It reveals a significant truth about our human experience. We often find ourselves trapped between regrets associated with our past and the anxieties concerning our future. Why, then, do we struggle so intensely with being present? Zen Buddhism elucidates that our minds evolved as survival tools, perpetually scanning the horizon for dangers and constructing plans for our safety. This evolutionary boon frequently becomes a hindrance to spiritual well-being, distancing us from the only moment we genuinely possess, this one. Our minds often trick us into believing that happiness rests in mending past traumas or securing future comforts, when, in reality, true peace is found solely in the present. Reflect on your own life experiences. How much of your mental suffering stems from replaying irrevocable events? Those unkind words that escaped your lips, an opportunity missed, or a relationship that ended painfully. These are the tigers lurking above. Conversely, consider how much of your anxiety arises from fearing scenarios that may never transpire, like a looming work presentation or an imminent medical test's outcome. These represent the tigers lurking below. Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh often stated, "The present moment is filled with joy and happiness. If you are attentive, you will see it." This moment embodies the strawberry within our narrative, a simple joy that coexists with our hardships. None of this diminishes the reality of our struggles. Instead, it allows us to redefine our relationship with our challenges. That strawberry could symbolize the gentle warmth of sunlight on your skin, the laughter of a child playing, the comforting taste of a home-cooked meal, the soothing embraces of your bed, or even the miracle of your very breath. Such small wonders are perpetually available, even in times of difficulty, yet we often overlook them while ensnared by the tigers of our past or future. Zen teachings encourage us to cultivate what the Japanese call ichigo iki, translating to one time, one meeting. This concept emphasizes the recognition that each moment is a unique and irreplaceable gift. When we genuinely grasp the importance of this moment, we instinctively wish to engage fully with it, no matter our surroundings or circumstances. The Buddha expressed, "The secret of health for both mind and body is not to mourn for the past, worry about the future, or anticipate troubles, but to live in the present moment wisely and earnestly." Such awareness invites us to examine where our focus habitually lies. Are you perpetually rerunning past exchanges or envisioning future dilemmas? Can you softly coax your attention back toward the strawberry that is this very moment? Those simple sensory experiences readily available to you right now? As you contemplate the responsibilities of tomorrow or reflect on the regrets of yesterday, recall the monk and his rediscovered strawberry. What modest joy can you appreciate right now, even as uncertainties loom? Perhaps it's the cadence of your breath, the comforting weight of a blanket, or the stillness enveloping you at this instant. The Buddha taught, there is no path to happiness. Happiness is the path. By savoring the strawberries we encounter along our journey, we realize that peace does not await us when the tigers vanish. It exists amid their very presence. Our next narrative unfolds another profound truth concerning the essence of suffering, articulated through a simple yet impactful metaphor, the story of two arrows. One serene day, the Buddha sat with his disciples in a tranquil forest glade, where trees danced gently in the breeze and birds filled the air with melodious tunes. The Buddha frequently spoke to his disciples about suffering, illustrating the path to enlightenment. On this particular day, a troubled disciple approached him with a heartfelt inquiry. "Master," he said, bowing respectfully, "I am perplexed by the pain we endure in life. Suffering appears to follow us at every turn. Why is that so? And how can we cultivate peace in the midst of such suffering?" The compassion of the Buddha. The Buddha looked at his disciple with warmth and empathy. He perceived the bewilderment and irritation in his student's gaze, recognizing that this was a question many of his followers contemplated. "Let me clarify," the Buddha spoke softly. "Envision a person who has been pierced by an arrow. This arrow inflicts pain, and such pain is unavoidable. This represents the first arrow." The disciples nodded, grasping that this first arrow illustrated the unavoidable hardships of existence, the bodily anguish of sickness, injury, or loss. But the Buddha continued, "Now picture that after being struck by this first arrow, the individual is then hit by a second arrow. This second arrow does not come from an external source. Instead, it is wrought by the mind. It encompasses the anger, fear, frustration, or sadness that lingers after the initial pain. This signifies the second arrow." The Buddha paused, allowing his words to resonate within his audience. "You see," he explained, "while the first arrow is inescapable, the second arrow is a choice. The first arrow denotes the inherent suffering that we all face throughout life, the trials and tribulations that cannot be evaded. Conversely, the second arrow, the suffering stemming from our reactions to that pain, is something we can choose to evade." The disciple listened with rapt attention as the Buddha elaborated on how, upon encountering physical or emotional anguish, the first arrow, we often exacerbate the situation by introducing a second layer of suffering via our mental responses. We may feel anger, resentment, or anxiety, and these emotions deepen our wounds. Rather than accepting the pain, we resist it, thereby amplifying our suffering. When faced with the first arrow, the Buddha continued, "We must acknowledge it for what it is, a natural part of existence. Yet we must also recognize the second arrow. It is one we generate ourselves. Through mindfulness and comprehension, we can decide not to let the second arrow afflict us. Master, the disciple queried, beginning to grasp the concept, how can we circumvent the second arrow? How can we stop our minds from compounding our suffering? The Buddha smiled. By cultivating mindfulness, we can observe our thoughts and feelings without becoming entangled in them. When we experience pain, we can recognize it without judgment. We can accept that pain is a facet of life, but we need not linger on it or create additional suffering through resistance or negative thinking. Thus, we can avert the second arrow before it strikes. The Buddha taught, pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. This simple yet profound phrase encapsulates the essence of the two arrows parable. We cannot escape all pain in life. The first arrows will find us. However, we wield significant power over how much we suffer in response to that pain. Why is it that we are so quick to inflict second arrows upon ourselves? Zen Buddhism highlights numerous aspects of our conditioned minds that foster this cycle. First, there is our deeply rooted habit of aversion, the mind's instinctive recoil from unpleasant experiences. When pain emerges, we instinctively resist it, creating an additional layer of mental strain that intensifies the original discomfort. Secondly, we face a tendency toward identification, the way we merge with our experiences, believing I am in pain rather than acknowledging there is pain being experienced. This subtle distinction holds profound implications. When we fully identify with pain, it becomes all-consuming, dictating our entire reality. When we perceive it from a distance, however, it transforms into just one aspect of a broader experience. Thirdly, our inclination towards proliferation comes into play, the mind's tendency to spawn endless thoughts regarding our experiences. A simple headache can trigger a torrent of worries. What if this is serious? What if it worsens? Why does this consistently happen to me? I won't be able to concentrate at work tomorrow. Each thought functions as yet another second arrow, piercing us repeatedly. These mental habits often operate largely unconsciously, which is why the Buddha underscored mindfulness as the antidote. Through mindfulness practice, we cultivate the ability to witness these patterns as they surface. We learn to distinguish between the unavoidable first arrow of pain and the optional second arrows resulting from our mental reactions. The Buddha asserted, "What you think, you become. What you feel, you attract. What you imagine, you create." This teaching illuminates the creative power of our thoughts. Each time we react to pain with aversion, identification, and proliferation, we foster suffering. Conversely, every time we confront pain with mindful awareness and acceptance, we open doors to healing and growth. Consider a personal setback, perhaps a rejection, a failure, or a loss. The first arrow is the event itself and the natural emotional response it elicits. The second arrows might include thoughts like "this always happens to me," globalization, "I'll never succeed," catastrophizing, "I should have performed better," self-criticism, or "this isn't fair," resistance to reality. Each of these thoughts inflicts additional suffering beyond the original disappointment. Zen teacher Charlotte Juko Beck remarked, "Pain is not something to be avoided, it's something to be engaged with without resistance." This is the essence of skillfully handling the first arrow. We do not deny pain or pretend it doesn't hurt. Instead, we bring open and compassionate attention to the experience itself, without layering on the second arrows of judgment, resistance, or complex narratives. The Buddha advised, if you are facing in the right direction, all you need to do is keep walking. The right direction is towards our pain, not away from it. By confronting challenging experiences with mindfulness, we develop the capability to engage with them skillfully, avoiding the compounding effect of second arrows. This evening, as you sense feelings in your body or emotions surfacing in your mind, can you identify the distinction between the first and second arrows? Can you face the unavoidable pains of life, physical discomfort, emotional vulnerability, or mental restlessness, with kind awareness rather than resistance? As the Buddha remarked, the path isn't found in the clouds, it resides in the heart. The path to liberation from anguish isn't discovered in fleeing our human condition, but rather in embracing it with insight and kindness. Let's delve into a tale that reveals the shared experience of loss and how comprehending it can bestow tranquility. This is the parable of the mustard seed. Long ago, there lived a compassionate young woman named Kisa Godami. She cared deeply for her family, embodying kindness and empathy. However, her life took a heart-wrenching turn when her cherished son fell ill and passed away. Overwhelmed by sorrow, Kisa refused to accept her child's death. She carried his lifeless form in her arms, wandering from door to door, desperately seeking someone who could revive him. Each time she approached a home, she pleaded, "Please, help me. My son has died. Is there anyone who can restore him to life?" Yet, every person she encountered turned her away, stating that there was nothing they could do. With every passing moment, her sadness weighed heavier, and her heart ached more with every no she received. On one fateful day, Kisa's journey brought her to a wise elder who felt compassion for her plight and said, "Seek out the Buddha. He may be able to assist you." With a flicker of hope igniting within her, Kisa Gotami raced to the Buddha, known for his empathy and wisdom. Upon finding him sitting serenely under a Bodhi tree, surrounded by his followers, she fell to her knees, presenting her son's body before him and implored, "Master, please, restore my child to me. I cannot endure this anguish." The Buddha gazed at her with profound compassion and understanding. He recognized her intense suffering, but also grasped that she needed to learn a significant truth about life and death. After a moment of contemplation, he spoke gently, "I can assist you, Kisa. However, first, you must retrieve something for me. Go into the village and bring me a mustard seed." Filled with renewed hope, Kisa replied earnestly, "Yes, Master. I will find a mustard seed," her voice quivering with relief. But just before she departed, the Buddha added, "The mustard seed must come from a household that has never encountered death. If you uncover such a household, bring back the seed, and I will restore your child to life." Kisa enthusiastically agreed and embarked on her quest. She approached the first home in the village and knocked on the door. A compassionate woman answered, and Kisa explained her mission. "Please, can you provide me with a mustard seed? But it must be from a home untouched by death." The woman regarded Kisa with sympathetic eyes and replied, "I'm sorry, but my husband died last year." Kisa expressed her gratitude and moved on to the next residence. Again, she made her request, but this time the answer was, "I regret to inform you, but my mother passed away many years ago." House after house, Kisa Godami knocked on doors, yearning to find one that had never faced the reality of death. Yet in each place, she heard tales of lost loved ones. A mother, a father, a brother, a sister, a child. As the day drew to a close, Kisa began to comprehend that death was not an isolated event meant solely for her. It was a communal experience, one that permeated every family. Finally, as the sun set on the horizon, Kisa returned to the Buddha, empty-handed yet enriched with newfound wisdom. She knelt before him, her heart now filled not with frantic hope, but with acceptance. "Master," she stated, "I could not locate a single household untouched by death. Each family has felt the pain of losing someone cherished. Now I grasp that death is an integral aspect of life, and no one can evade it." The Buddha acknowledged her understanding with a gentle nod and replied, "Kisa, you have uncovered an essential truth. Death is unavoidable, and suffering visits all who cling to the transient things of this world. However, by embracing the fleeting nature of life, you may discover peace. Your grief is not an isolated matter. It is a shared burden among all beings. This is the essence of existence." With these words, Kisa Gotami recognized that her anguish, although profound, was a shared experience. She had allowed her personal grief to blind her. Now, however, she understood that each individual experiences loss. This realization permitted her to release her child's body and bury him honorably, ultimately achieving a sense of tranquility amidst life's inevitable transformations. The Buddha imparted, "All that begins will also end. Make peace with this knowledge, and all shall be well." This profound insight forms the crux of Kisa Gotami's Odyssey. Her story sheds light on one of the most difficult yet liberating truths of existence. Nothing is eternal, and our efforts to deny this reality only intensify our suffering. Why do we so vehemently resist the truth of impermanence? Zen Buddhism points to our deeply ingrained desire for constancy as the root of our suffering. We long for the wonderful to remain delightful, the beautiful to stay beautiful, and most importantly, we wish for our loved ones to remain with us indefinitely. This yearning for permanence within a transient world generates a fundamental conflict that manifests as suffering. Like Kisa, we often confront loss with denial. We reject what has occurred and expend significant energy attempting to reverse what is irreversible. This denial is a natural component of grief. Yet, when we become mired in it, we hinder ourselves from progressing through the healing journey. The Buddha did not rush to lecture Kisa on the nature of impermanence. Instead, he provided her with an experience that enabled her to uncover this truth independently, a far more potent lesson. The Buddha asserted that the crux of suffering lies in attachment. In Kisa's situation, her bond with her son extended beyond love. It was an urgent attachment that could not encompass the reality of his death. Her quest to find a mustard seed from a household untouched by death illuminated the futility of her longing for permanence. Each home, no matter its wealth or joy, had been touched by death. This shared reality of loss binds us together in what Buddhists refer to as the fellowship of suffering. When we genuinely comprehend that loss affects everyone, our personal grief, while still painful, becomes less isolating. We come to see our experiences as part of the vast flow of human existence. The farmer and the horse, a lesson in impermanence. In the midst of life's unpredictable journey, there lies a profound wisdom in accepting change. The 14th century Zen teacher Basua once taught, "To discern the truth, relinquish desire. If you cling to your desires, true understanding will elude you." Kisa's longing to bring her son back blinded her to the reality of impermanence. Only by releasing this unattainable wish was she able to embrace her circumstances and find solace. Notably, the Buddha chose not to console Kisa by offering her visions of an afterlife or a reunion with her son in another existence. Instead, he gently steered her towards acknowledging the natural flow of life, that all that is born will eventually perish and that bonds will inevitably break apart. Accepting this truth does not signify defeat. Rather, it aligns us with reality, the essential realm from which healing can commence. The Buddha imparted the wisdom that the trouble is you think you have time. This poignant reminder of life's fleeting nature calls us to cherish every moment and every bond, aware that nothing is everlasting. Rather than leading us into gloom or despair, this consciousness enriches our lives with deeper appreciation and presence. In your personal encounters with loss, be it the death of a loved one, the end of a relationship, the loss of a job, or the conclusion of a chapter in life, do you recognize the lesson of the mustard seed? Can you perceive how your pain is often intensified by resisting the inevitable flow of change? The Buddha stated, "Upon realizing the perfection of everything, you will tilt your head back and laugh at the sky." This embrace of imperfect perfection acknowledges the cycles of existence, life and death, growth and decay, unity and separation, every beat of life itself. As you contemplate your past losses and those you fear in the future, reflect on Kisa Gautami's path. Can you draw comfort from the shared experience of impermanence? Can you understand how accepting this reality may alleviate your suffering? Not by minimizing your grief, but by placing it within the broad tapestry of humanity. As the Buddha famously articulated, in the end, only three things hold significance: how deeply you loved, how gently you lived, and how gracefully you released what was never meant for you. Our next tale illustrates the wisdom found in withholding judgment and embodying equanimity amid life's incessant changes. This is the story of the farmer and his horse. Once, in a quaint and tranquil village, there lived a diligent farmer. Renowned among his neighbors for his hard work and serene nature, he cultivated a modest farm with just one horse to aid him in daily chores, from tilling the fields to hauling heavy goods. Although his possessions were few, the farmer found contentment in his lifestyle. One fateful day, however, his horse bolted. The farmer awoke to discover his stable unoccupied, with the horse nowhere to be found. His neighbors, upon hearing of this predicament, quickly visited him to extend their sympathies. "How unfortunate," they lamented. "How will you cope without your horse? This is truly unlucky." The farmer, however, remained tranquil. He regarded his neighbors and replied simply, "Maybe." The neighbors were taken aback by this reaction. How can he remain so unfazed by such misfortune? They shook their heads in disbelief and departed, convinced that the farmer was in denial. Days later, to everyone's astonishment, the horse returned, but it was not alone. It had brought along a herd of wild horses from the nearby mountains. Now, the farmer was the owner of not just one horse but several. When the neighbors learned this, they hurried back to the farmer's home, an air of excitement filling the atmosphere. "How splendid!" they exclaimed. "Now you have many horses. What incredible fortune!" The farmer, once again, looked at them, smiled calmly, and stated, "Maybe." Confusion washed over the neighbors. Surely this was a stroke of good luck, yet the farmer's demeanor remained unchanged. They wondered why he did not express more joy about his sudden fortune. A few days later, the farmer's son attempted to tame one of the wild horses. While riding, he was thrown off and sustained a serious injury, breaking his leg. This injury kept the son from participating in farm work for an extended period. Once again, the neighbors flocked to the farmer's house. This time, they were filled with sorrow. "How tragic!" they exclaimed. "Your son has broken his leg. Now he is unable to assist you. This is indeed unfortunate." Yet, the farmer responded with his characteristic calmness. "Maybe," he repeated. The neighbors could only scratch their heads in bewilderment. The farmer maintained his composure despite the swings of fortune and misfortune, leaving them utterly perplexed. Weeks passed, and then chaos erupted when war broke out. Soldiers came to the village, demanding the young men enlist in the army. Many villagers found their sons conscripted to fight, yet due to his broken leg, the farmer's son remained home with him. Once again, the neighbors visited the farmer, this time expressing admiration. "How lucky you are," they exclaimed. "Because your son was injured, he was spared from being drafted into the military. What amazing fortune!" And once again, the farmer replied, "Maybe." The teachings of the Buddha remind us that nothing is permanent. Everything is subject to change. Being is always becoming. This wisdom underpins the farmer's perspective. His consistent maybe reflects a profound understanding of life's ever-shifting nature, where what seems fortuitous or adverse in one moment may transform entirely in another. Why do we hasten to label experiences as good or bad? Zen Buddhism highlights our mind's tendency to compartmentalize, habitually sorting experiences into favorable or unfavorable categories, thus triggering emotional upheaval. We feel ecstatic when situations favor us and desolate when they turn against us. Yet the story of the farmer teaches us that we rarely grasp the full story. Today's setback could be the very thing that shields us from tomorrow's greater adversity. The parable of the farmer and the angry man. Life can sometimes feel like a double-edged sword, where today's fortune may turn into tomorrow's misfortune. The idea of non-judgment in Zen Buddhism doesn't imply indifference or a lack of concern. The farmer wasn't detached from his life. Instead, he embraced a sense of equanimity that the Buddha described, a balanced viewpoint that endured amidst life's inevitable fluctuations. He cared deeply for his horse, his son, and his livelihood, yet he maintained his inner peace regardless of the shifting tides of his circumstances. As Zen Master Sangtan expressed in the Hin Shinming, the Great Way is not difficult for those who harbor no preferences. When we cease to impose our expectations on life, we unlock a profound kind of freedom, allowing ourselves to receive life's inherent wisdom that often reveals itself in ways we may not foresee. The Buddha advised against exaggerating our possessions or envying others, stating, "He who envies others does not obtain peace of mind." How frequently do we find ourselves measuring our lives against others, determining our fortunes based on these comparisons? The farmer's neighbors regularly assessed his situation through their own lenses of right and wrong. While the farmer was liberated from such restrictive views, our contemporary lives are ripe with chances to adopt this maybe mindset. Perhaps the promotion you didn't secure opened the door to a more rewarding opportunity. The relationship that concluded painfully may have paved the way for deeper self-awareness. An illness could prompt a reassessment of your priorities, while a financial setback might instill resilience. In hindsight, many of us can recognize how apparent misfortunes led to growth or surprises in disguise. The 13th century poet Rumi articulated this insight beautifully. What appears to be a curse may be a blessing, and what appears to be a blessing may be a curse. The farmer lived this wisdom not just as a thought, but as an integral part of his existence. His maybe was not mere apathy, but a manifestation of active wisdom. He understood that life's full narrative was still unfolding, as the Buddha noted that within the sky, there exists no distinction between East and West. Distinctions are products of our minds, which we then accept as truth. The notions of good luck and bad luck are similarly our mental constructs. Reality flows through an ever-changing combination of causes and conditions, devoid of intrinsic good or bad value. As you reflect on the recent events in your life that you have categorized as fortunate or unfortunate, try to approach them with the farmer's gentle maybe. Observe how this viewpoint might reduce anxiety about the negative and lessen attachment to the positive. Can you discover freedom in suspending your judgments of how things ought to be? As the Buddha taught, our thoughts shape our world. The farmer's maybe reminds us that we hold the power to choose how we interpret our experiences, and this power has far-reaching effects on our mental tranquility. Our next tale illustrates the strength of non-reactivity and emotional mastery. This is the story of the Buddha and the enraged man. Once, while the Buddha was sharing his teachings with disciples in a serene forest, a man approached him, fuming with anger. This man had heard of the Buddha's insights and influence and felt threatened by it. Overcome with jealousy and bitterness, he resolved to confront the Buddha and insult him before his followers. As the Buddha remained serenely seated beneath a bodhi tree, the man rushed towards him, unleashing a torrent of insults. "You are nothing but a charlatan," he yelled. "What gives you the right to act superior? You might play wise and enlightened, but you're just fooling people." The Buddha stayed perfectly composed, unfazed by the man's vitriol. His demeanor remained unchanged, and he refrained from responding to the torrent of anger. The man, noticing the Buddha's unshakable calmness, became even more enraged, yelling louder, "How can you sit there acting like you're above everyone? Do you think you're better than me? I refuse to acknowledge someone like you." Yet, despite the man's fury, the Buddha remained silent and tranquil, simply observing him with compassion. Eventually, After several minutes, the man grew weary. He expected the Buddha to react, but his unperturbed presence only confused him. After regaining his breath, he demanded, "Why aren't you defending yourself? Don't you care about what I think of you?" The Buddha regarded him gently and then asked, "Tell me, if someone offers you a gift and you choose not to accept it, to whom does the gift belong?" The man, baffled by the inquiry, contemplated for a second before answering, "It would still belong to the person who offered it. If I don't take it, the gift remains theirs." The Buddha nodded in agreement. "Precisely. Similarly, if you direct your anger towards me and I don't accept it, to whom does that anger belong?" The man was taken aback by the depth of the Buddha's words as he realized that his fury had no impact on the Buddha. Instead, it was simply a weight he chose to carry. The Buddha elaborated, "If I refuse your insults and anger, they revert to you. You are the one who suffers from them, not I. I choose to remain undisturbed by your words. Instead, I choose peace." The man stood there in silence, mulling over what the Buddha had shared. He recognized that his anger had consumed him, but it held no sway over the Buddha, who remained untouched by it. In that instant, the man comprehended that clinging to his anger only inflicted pain on himself, not on the Buddha. Overwhelmed with shame, he lowered his head. "Master, I see now that my anger has brought me nothing but suffering. How can I learn to achieve the peace you embody?" The Buddha softly smiled, his compassion radiating. "Anger is like a hot coal that you lift with the intention of throwing it at someone. In the act, you burn yourself. The essence of letting go. Release the coal. Release your resentment. Instead, embrace mindfulness, kindness, and empathy. Through these practices, inner peace will emerge." The man, humbled by the wisdom of the Buddha, expressed his gratitude and bowed deeply. From that moment onward, he dedicated himself to upholding the teachings of the Buddha, relinquishing his anger and discovering tranquility within. The Buddha conveyed, "You are not punished for your anger. You are punished by your anger." This profound teaching clarifies why our impulsive emotions inflict so much pain. When we harbor anger, bitterness, or hatred, we inflict more harm upon ourselves than on those at whom these emotions are aimed. Each second spent in anger is a second squandered away from peace. Every vengeful thought diverts energy from healing. Why do we hold onto our anger so tenaciously? Zen Buddhism highlights several reasons that make releasing anger especially challenging. First is our sense of righteousness, the belief that our anger is legitimate and therefore justified to retain. We often confuse the act of releasing our anger with excusing the actions that ignited it. However, the teachings of the Buddha challenge this belief. We can set firm boundaries and seek justice without allowing ourselves to be consumed by reactive emotions. Secondly, we often strongly identify with our feelings. We tend to say, "I am angry," instead of "I am experiencing anger," which makes the emotion a part of our identity. When someone encourages us to let go of our anger, it may feel as if they are asking us to part with a piece of ourselves. Zen practices guide us to create distance between our awareness and our emotions, permitting us to observe them without being overwhelmed. Thirdly, Our cultural upbringing regarding anger plays a significant role. Many have been taught to see anger as a source of strength, an impetus for action, and a command for respect. We fear that without anger, we might appear passive or be exploited. The Buddha's reaction to the angry man showcases true strength, not the explosive force of aggression, but the unwavering stability of equanimity. The Buddha stated, "Hatred never ceases by hatred, but by love alone is healed." This ancient law invites us to scrutinize our belief that anger serves as an effective answer to mistreatment. Does responding to hostility with hostility ever truly resolve the underlying issues? Or does it merely perpetuate cycles of reactivity? The metaphor of the gift is particularly insightful. It illustrates that emotions such as anger, criticism, and judgment require our acceptance to impact us. When negativity is directed at us, we can either choose to accept this energy, allowing it to disturb our peace, or decline the gift, maintaining our equanimity. This choice does not equate to becoming emotionally detached or indifferent to injustice. The Buddha did not disregard the angry man. He remained present and engaged. However, his response stemmed from compassion rather than reactivity. It was guided by wisdom, not a defensive ego. This encapsulates non-reactivity in Zen practice, not withdrawal from engagement, but engagement arising from a different quality of awareness. Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh introduces a practice of embracing anger with mindfulness, which includes recognizing anger upon its emergence, breathing with it, and treating it with the same tenderness one would show a crying infant. Instead of stifling anger or letting it explode uncontrollably, we acknowledge it with gentle awareness, grasping its origins and transient nature. The Buddha said, "If you truly loved yourself, you would never harm another." This highlights the interconnectedness of self-care and caring for others. When we react with anger, we first and foremost harm ourselves. Choosing peace over reactivity isn't a self-denying sacrifice, but rather the most profound form of self-care. As you reflect this evening on moments that have stirred anger or resentment within you, experiment with the Buddha's metaphor of the gift. Are you able to recognize that you have a choice regarding the acceptance of others' negativity? Can you sense the liberation that comes from declining these offerings? Remember the Buddha's powerful words. Clinging to anger is akin to grasping a hot coal with the intention of hurling it at someone else. It is you who suffers the most. By letting go of that coal, you not only liberate yourself but also pave the way for genuine resolution and understanding. Let's now delve into a story about the wisdom of impermanence and non-attachment, the tale of the monk and the teacup. In a serene Zen monastery nestled in the mountains, a respected monk lived a life rich in contemplation and mindfulness. His students revered him for his wisdom, tranquil demeanor, and the way he embraced each present moment, undisturbed by surrounding chaos. Daily, the monk would meditate, savor tea, and impart valuable lessons to his students. One afternoon during their customary tea ceremony, the monk lifted a simple clay teacup and stared at it for an extended moment. The cup, beautifully simplistic with its soft earthen hue and perfectly rounded shape, drew the students' curiosity as they eagerly awaited their master's insights. After a brief silence, the monk smiled and stated, "This teacup is already broken." The students exchanged puzzled glances. They could clearly see that the teacup was intact, whole, and perfectly well. Eventually, one of the younger students, unable to suppress his curiosity, spoke up. "Master, the teacup is fine. It is perfectly whole. Why do you say it is already broken?" The monk, still smiling, gently placed the teacup back on the table before him. "In my mind," he replied softly, "this teacup is already broken. It may seem whole right now, but one day, perhaps tomorrow or years from now, it will break. This is certain. By recognizing that it is inherently broken, I can truly cherish it as it is, without clinging to it. I can enjoy drinking tea from it, understanding its existence is temporary." The cup of impermanence. The students remained still, contemplating the significance of the monk's message. They understood that his lesson expanded beyond the teacup. It encompassed deeper truths about existence. The monk elaborated, "Everything in existence resembles this teacup. Each item, regardless of its beauty or value, is transient. We can't clutch them eternally. Recognizing this allows us to experience life to the fullest, free from the anxiety of losing what we possess. We can savor every moment, every relationship, every experience, aware that they too shall fade. When they leave us, grief won't follow because we have acknowledged their evanescence." One of the elder students pondered and posed the question, "Master, does this imply that we shouldn't love or care for things, considering they will eventually vanish?" The monk gently disagreed with a shake of his head. "No, quite the contrary. Embracing the impermanence of all things permits us to love more profoundly since we are not grasping at them out of fear of loss. We value and cherish them for what they are at this instant. We acknowledge their role in the natural flow of existence. In this manner, we can navigate life with tranquility, free from the burden of attachments to what is destined to evolve." The Buddha imparted wisdom, stating, "All conditioned phenomena are transient. Once one perceives this with clarity, one becomes disenchanted with suffering." This profound insight lies at the core of the teacup narrative and highlights one of the most liberating yet demanding aspects of Zen practice, not merely understanding impermanence as a concept, but integrating it into everyday life. Why do we resist the reality of impermanence so vehemently? Zen Buddhism reveals our basic misinterpretation of reality as the source of this resistance. We view objects as fixed, separate, and everlasting when, in truth, they are fluid, interconnected, and fleeting. This misunderstanding breeds what Buddhists refer to as attachment or clinging, our futile effort to secure things that inherently cannot be held. Reflect on how this attachment surfaces in your lived experience. We find ourselves attached to belongings, fearing their loss or destruction. We cling to our relationships, attempting to inhibit their evolution. We grasp onto our youth, well-being, and abilities, resisting the natural progression of aging. We even cling to our beliefs, perspectives, and identities, defending them as if they were permanent elements rather than dynamic structures. The monk's assertion that the teacup is already broken provides a transformative lens through which to view impermanence. Instead of denying or opposing change, he anticipates it by acknowledging the certainty of all things end. This liberates him from the anxiety of trying to avert the unavoidable. This perspective is not one of pessimism, but rather a clear-eyed appreciation that paradoxically enriches his enjoyment of the present moment. The Buddha stated, "The world is afflicted by mortality and decay, yet the wise do not mourn once they comprehend life's nature." This teaching does not promote indifference or detachment from affection. Instead, it reveals a different form of care, one that isn't warped by the unrealistic expectation of permanence. The monk does not diminish his affection for the teacup simply because it is destined to break. He cherishes it more precisely because its existence is fleeting and precious. Zen master Shunryu Suzuki artfully captured this paradox. When we grasp the essence of impermanence and maintain our poise within it, we arrive at a state of clarity. This composure is not born from resigning to loss, but from wholly embracing reality's nature. It is a steadiness that allows us to engage deeply with life precisely because we are not perpetually battling its fundamental traits. In practical terms, how can we nurture this perspective of inevitability? We can begin by recognizing our attachments, the people, objects, and situations we dread losing. Rather than trying to suppress this anxiety, we can softly acknowledge the temporary essence of these valuable aspects of our lives. We might practice affirming to ourselves, "This too will fade," not as a dreary reminder, but as an invitation to treasure the moment at hand. The Buddha taught, "Neither fire nor wind, birth nor death can obliterate our good deeds." This reflects another dimension of the wisdom in embracing the already broken perspective. While all tangible possessions, including our bodies, are transient, the effects of our actions and the essence of our presence endure beyond physical forms. By concentrating on nurturing wisdom, compassion, and mindfulness, qualities that transcend temporality, we discover a different kind of serenity. As you wind down tonight, reflect on the teacups in your life that you might be clutching with anxiety over their eventual breaking. Can you experiment with the monk's viewpoint, mentally recognizing their transience, not as a threat, but as a fact that enriches their significance? As the Buddha wisely noted, the trouble lies in the illusion that we have time. Recognizing impermanence does not detract from life's richness. Rather, it enhances it, encouraging us to fully appreciate what we have while it is still here before it inevitably transforms. Now let's delve into a tale embodying true generosity and compassion known as the Buddha and the robe. In ancient India, during the era when the Buddha roamed from village to village imparting his teachings, he frequently drew in large crowds of followers. Inspired by his wisdom, many abandoned their homes to become monks and disciples under his guidance. One day, while residing in a small village, a wealthy merchant learned of the Buddha's presence and chose to pay him a visit. Deeply moved by the Buddha's teachings, he wished to present a gift as a token of respect. The merchant brought a finely woven, luxurious robe crafted from the finest silk, embellished with exquisite patterns. He approached the Buddha, bowed with respect, and offered the robe with reverence, saying, "Lord Buddha, I wish to present you with this robe as a symbol of my gratitude for your teachings." The benevolent refusal. The Buddha gazed at the fine robe and then regarded the merchant with a soft smile. He could sense the merchant's heartfelt intention and his eagerness to offer. Nonetheless, the Buddha led a life steeped in simplicity and had little interest in material comforts. His needs were minimal, and he encouraged his disciples to adopt a similar lifestyle. "I appreciate your kind gesture," the Buddha stated, "but I cannot accept this robe. It is much too lavish for a humble monk like myself. I find contentment in the robe I currently wear." The merchant was taken aback by the Buddha's reply. "But, Lord Buddha," he implored, "I present this robe out of respect for you. Surely you deserve the finest I can provide." Keeping his smile, the Buddha responded, "If you genuinely wish to honor me, there's a more meaningful way to utilize this gift. Please, take this robe and give it to someone who truly needs it, someone who lacks even the basic clothing for warmth. That act would yield greater merit and happiness." The merchant, recognizing the Buddha's profound empathy for those in need, nodded slowly. He comprehended that the true essence of giving lay not in bestowing gifts upon those already well off, but in aiding those who were suffering. "Thank you, Lord Buddha. I will comply with your wishes," the merchant replied. He took the robe and soon encountered a destitute man in the village who was trembling in the cold, clad only in tattered rags. The merchant generously offered the robe, leaving the poor man ecstatic and deeply appreciative. The following day, the merchant returned to the Buddha to recount his actions. The Buddha nodded in approval and commented, "You have acted wisely, my friend. True generosity lies not in giving to those who expect it or don't require aid, but in assisting those who are genuinely in need. By sharing your bounty with those less fortunate, you have infused the world with authentic joy and compassion." The merchant bowed deeply, feeling an unfamiliar warmth well up in his heart. He understood that the Buddha's wisdom transcended the simple act of accepting a gift. It was about grasping the real nature of giving, the significance of compassion, and the fulfillment that comes from helping others. The Buddha imparted, "Generosity brings forth happiness at every phase of its manifestation. We feel joy in the intention to be generous, in the act of giving itself, and in recalling that we have given." This profound realization reveals that true generosity transcends the exchange of material possessions. It lies in transforming our hearts and perspectives through the giving process. Why did Buddha decline the luxurious robe? Zen Buddhism unveils multiple layers of insight within his response. Firstly, he embodied the understanding of sufficiency, highlighting that unchecked desires will never be satisfied. By expressing contentment with his simple robe, the Buddha illustrated liberation from the unending cycle of wanting more. Secondly, the Buddha acknowledged that authentic generosity isn't tied to social position or recognition, but rather to genuine need. By redirecting the merchant's offering to someone truly suffering from the cold, he conveyed that compassionate acts must be led by wisdom rather than societal norms or status. Thirdly, the Buddha's response illustrated his awareness of the merchant's motivations. Although the merchant sought to gain merit and express admiration, the Buddha enlightened him on a deeper path to achieve both. By directly alleviating another's distress instead of augmenting the luxury of the Buddha's already satisfactory existence. In our consumer-oriented society, we frequently confuse giving with purchasing, procuring extravagant gifts for those who already possess enough. We gauge our generosity by cost rather than impact. The Buddha's teachings invite us to rethink this mindset, urging mindfulness on where our resources can effectuate the most positive change. He asserted, "If you understood as I do the potency of giving, You would not let a single meal pass without sharing it in some manner. This highlights the transformative capacity of generosity, not just for the recipient, but for the giver as well. Each act of sincere giving diminishes our self-centeredness and fortifies our bonds with others. It serves as a reminder that our well-being is integrally intertwined with the well-being of all beings. Zen practice encourages us to cultivate dana paramita, the perfection of giving. This encompasses more than mere material generosity. It includes offering our time, attention, energy, and presence. Occasionally, the most invaluable gift we can provide is simply our full presence with another person. Listening intently without distractions or ulterior motives. The narrative also underscores the necessity of discernment in the act of giving. The Buddha did not propose that the merchant retain the robe for personal use or sell it for profit. Instead, he urged him to seek out someone truly in need. This discernment obliges us to deeply assess circumstances rather than follow conventional giving patterns that may not address actual suffering. The Buddha proclaimed, "The greatest gift is the act of giving itself." This signifies the internal transformation that transpires when we give from a place of compassion, rather than obligation, social expectation, or self-gratification. When we give in this manner, we experience what Buddhist philosophy refers to as mudita, the sympathetic joy found in the happiness of others. This evening, as you ponder your own giving practices, consider whether they align with the Buddha's teachings illustrated in this story. Are there opportunities to redirect your resources, be it material, emotional, or attentional, toward those who earnestly require assistance? Can you recognize the contrast in feelings between giving stemmed from social obligation and giving that emanates from genuine compassion? Recall the Buddha's counsel: if beings were aware as I am of the outcomes of sharing and generosity, they would not partake of meals without sharing, nor would selfishness taint their minds. Now, let's delve into a less commonly shared Zen tale that reveals profound truths about mastering our thoughts: the story of two monks and a river. An elder monk and a novice disciple found themselves at a river bank. A journey of understanding. Two monks were on a long pilgrimage, traversing forests, scaling mountains, and crossing valleys. Throughout their journey, they moved in contemplative silence, attuned to each step and breath they took. As they neared a river, they spotted a young woman at the bank, elegantly adorned in fine silks, but clearly distressed. The river had swollen due to recent rains, and she hesitated, fearful that the fierce current would ruin her attire and potentially endanger her. Spotting the monks, she appealed to them. "Oh, kind sirs, could you assist me in crossing this river? I must reach the other side, but I dread the water." Without any hesitation, the elder monk approached her, gently scooping her into his arms and carrying her across the river to set her down safely on the opposite shore. The woman expressed her gratitude with a bow and continued on her way. The two monks resumed their silent journey. However, the younger monk seemed preoccupied. His expression was troubled, furrowing his brow as he frequently glanced at his elder companion with confusion and disapproval. After several hours of walking in silence, the younger monk could no longer restrain himself. "Master," he exclaimed, "as monks, we have sworn vows not to touch women. How could you have carried that woman across the river?" The elder monk met his gaze with a warm smile and replied, "I left the woman at the riverbank hours ago. Why are you still carrying her?" The younger monk was rendered speechless by this insight. He understood that while the elder monk had borne the woman for a mere moment out of kindness and necessity, he himself had been mentally hauling her along for hours, laden with judgment and disrupting his own peace. The Buddha imparted, "What we think we become." This profound truth sheds light on the reason why the younger monk's mental burden was significantly heavier than the brief physical weight the elder monk bore. The elder monk responded to the immediate need with compassion and returned to the present moment, while the younger monk remained ensnared in the past, obsessively replaying the events in his mind. Why do we, like the younger monk, so frequently lug around unnecessary mental loads? Zen Buddhism identifies a few core reasons that underpin this tendency. First, we often cling to rules and concepts rather than embracing underlying principles. The younger monk was so engrossed in the exact wording of monastic regulations that he failed to grasp their essence, which is to live with purity and compassion. His narrow interpretation obstructed his perception of the elder monk's action as a genuine act of Buddhist kindness. Secondly, we tend to fall into the trap of judgment and mental spirals. One thought leads to another, culminating in a cascade of narratives and evaluations that detract us from the moment at hand. The younger monk's initial observation sent him down a rabbit hole of internal dialogues, criticisms, and doubt, all unnecessary forms of self-inflicted suffering. Thirdly, we struggle to differentiate between constructive concern and unproductive rumination. Although reflection on previous actions can be beneficial for growth, fixating obsessively serves only to disrupt our tranquility. The elder monk exemplified the skill of acting decisively when necessary, then completely relinquishing it. In our everyday lives, we too bear invisible burdens. The argument from last week that we incessantly replay in our minds, the blunder at work we can't seem to forget, the anxieties about future events that may never come to fruition. Each of these mental patterns is akin to carrying someone across a river and never letting them down. The Buddha advised, release the past, release the future, release the present. Crossing to the further shore of existence with a mind liberated from everything means not getting trapped in cycles of birth and death. This teaching highlights the liberation available when we shed our mental fixations and return to the straightforwardness of the present moment. Zen practice offers effective strategies for unloading our mental encumbrances. Mindfulness meditation helps us detect when we are carrying unnecessary thoughts and guides us in gently putting them aside. The technique of labeling thoughts as thinking aids in recognizing them as mere mental constructs rather than truths. Concentrating on physical sensations, the feeling of our feet connecting with the ground, the rhythm of our breathing, anchors us in the now when thoughts attempt to draw us into the past or future. The elder monk exemplifies what Zen refers to as no mind or mushin, not the absence of thought, but the liberation from attachment to thought. He could think clearly when required, act with compassion when necessary, and then effortlessly return to the serene emptiness of the present. This mental state is accessible to all of us when we learn to discard what no longer serves a purpose. As you reflect tonight on your thoughts about the day that has passed or the one that lies ahead, can you recognize when you're unnecessarily carrying someone or something in your mind? Can you sense the freedom that comes from gently setting down these mental loads? Recall the Buddha's words, "Nothing is worth clinging to." In that release resides true peace. Now, let's pivot to a narrative illustrating the barriers we construct within our own minds. This is the tale of the empty cup. A revered university professor once sought the wisdom of a Zen master, eager to comprehend Zen's teachings. Having dedicated many years to the study of philosophy and religious scripture, and authored numerous works on comparative spirituality, he considered himself quite learned while longing to grasp Zen's unique insights. Upon reaching the master's humble abode, the Zen master welcomed him cordially and invited him to sit down. "I have come to learn about Zen," the professor began. "I wish to understand your teachings and how they diverge from the various philosophies I have already explored." The master smiled and replied, "Let's enjoy some tea first. Then we can discuss Zen." The professor nodded, anticipating that. The overflowing cup. After the customary tea, the deeply philosophical dialogue that the professor had journeyed so far to engage in was finally at hand. The Zen master carefully prepared the tea, moving with intention and mindfulness. Upon completion, he set a cup before the professor and began pouring. The cup filled to the top, yet the master continued to pour. Tea overflowed, spilling over the edge, drenching the table, the professor's clothes, and the floor around them. Startled, the professor exclaimed, "Stop! The cup is full. It cannot hold any more." The Zen master paused his pouring, fixing his gaze on the professor. "Just like this cup," he stated, "you are filled with opinions, theories, and preconceived notions. How can I teach you Zen if you do not first empty your cup?" The professor fell silent, struck by the realization that his vast knowledge had turned into an obstacle rather than a gateway to fresh understanding. His cup was overflowing, leaving no space for new insights. With this humbling revelation, he bowed to the master, now genuinely prepared to learn. The Buddha expressed, "In the mind of a beginner, there lie many possibilities, whereas in the mind of an expert, few exist." This lesson emphasizes the value of retaining an open and receptive mindset, which Zen refers to as the beginner's mind or shin. Approaching life with the fresh outlook of a novice keeps us open to endless possibilities. Conversely, believing we already possess all the answers restricts us from new revelations. Why do we tend to overfill our cups so easily? Zen Buddhism identifies a few key factors that fuel this widespread human inclination. Firstly, there's our ego's desire for certainty and control. By convincing ourselves we understand how things truly are, we create a false sense of security in an otherwise unpredictable world. Our beliefs and opinions act as a protective fortress against the vulnerability inherent in the unknown. Secondly, we become attached to our identities. Much of our self-concept is built on our existing knowledge, experiences, and viewpoints. The act of emptying our cups feels threatening, as it disrupts our sense of self. If I relinquish what I believe I know, who am I? This fear keeps us tightly grasping our filled cups, even when they no longer benefit us. Thirdly, there is what Buddhists refer to as the comparing mind. This is our tendency to perpetually measure ourselves against others. especially in academic and professional spheres. Having more knowledge than our peers can become a source of status and recognition. The professor's identity and stature were bolstered by his knowledge, making it particularly difficult for him to adopt an attitude of unknowingness. The implications of a full cup extend far beyond limiting our learning. When our minds are overloaded with preconceptions, we experience life through filters that distort our views. We do not perceive what is truly in front of us. Rather, we see what our established knowledge suggests ought to be there. We overlook the richness and intricacy of reality by forcing it to align with our narrow understanding. Zen practice provides specific techniques for emptying our cups. Meditation trains us to observe the rapidity with which we label, categorize, and judge experiences based on what we already know. By acknowledging these mental habits, we cultivate a gap between our pure awareness and the clutter of our thoughts. We practice setting aside our preconceived notions to engage directly with reality. The Buddha stated, "With our thoughts, we create the world." When our thoughts are rigid and unyielding, the world appears small and predictable. Yet, when we empty our cups, adopting a mindset of openness and humility, the world unveils its infinite splendor. As you navigate your daily life, pay attention to instances when you confront situations with an already full cup. Perhaps it's during a conversation where you are formulating responses before the other person has finished speaking, engaging in a familiar task automatically, missing its unique attributes at that moment, or presuming to fully understand someone, thereby leaving no room for their surprises. This evening, as you settle in, try to experiment with emptying your cup. Release your preconceived notions about relaxation, sleep, or even the narratives you are hearing. Can you listen with fresh ears, as if encountering these words for the first time? Can you sense the expansive feeling that arises when you let go of the need to evaluate, judge, or classify? As the Buddha advised, empty your boat of water. It will glide lightly and swiftly. In a similar vein, when we clear our minds of preconceived ideas, we navigate life with increased ease and joy. Now, let us delve into a tale about discovering wisdom in unexpected places. This is the narrative of the Zen master and the muddy path. A Zen master was journeying with a group of disciples along a country road. The rainy season had transformed the path into a slippery, challenging trek. As they walked mindfully, focusing on each step, they came across a beautiful temple perched on a hill overlooking the road. The group chose to visit the temple and ascended the hill. Upon arrival, they were greeted by a stunning structure adorned with detailed carvings, golden figures, and expertly tended gardens. Inside, priests clad in pristine robes performed intricate rituals with precise movements accompanied by beautiful chanting. The disciples were captivated by the temple's splendor and the priests' dedication to their practices. After spending some time observing, they gathered around their master outside the temple. "Master," one disciple inquired, "what is your opinion about this temple and its practices? Is this the route to enlightenment?" The Zen master didn't respond immediately. Instead, he led his disciples back down to the muddy road they had come along. He stopped at a particularly filthy area, knelt down, and placed his hand in the muck. Then, he drew a circle in the muddy ground. Looking up at his students, he proclaimed, "Truth can be uncovered here as well." Initially perplexed, the disciples gradually began to comprehend. The Master was elucidating that enlightenment was not confined to ornate temples or flawless rituals. The mud, commonplace and unrefined. The muddy path to wisdom. The essence of true wisdom is often intertwined with our daily lives, much like the golden temple radiates peace. Enlightenment isn't reserved for holy places. It's accessible to those who are willing to look. As the Buddha wisely stated, if you can't discover the truth right where you are, where do you think you'll find it? This vital message resonates within the Zen Master's mud circle. It prompts us to reconsider our impulse to pursue enlightenment in exclusive retreats, extraordinary escapades, or under flawless conditions, rather than embracing the very present moment of our lives. Why is it that we often fail to see the wisdom inherent in the mundane? Zen Buddhism highlights our tendency towards spiritual materialism, where we transform spirituality into yet another item to acquire or achieve. We mistakenly believe that enlightenment is a result of amassing remarkable experiences, teachings, or accolades, rather than engaging deeply with the reality of our everyday lives. The mud symbolizes the life experiences we often shy away from or seek to escape. The tangled emotions, uncomfortable sensations, monotonous duties, and fallible relationships that constitute much of our human condition. We envision spiritual growth as a journey above these gritty truths, unaware that they harbor the very wisdom we are in search of. In Japanese aesthetics, there exists a notion known as wabi-sabi. It is the appreciation of beauty found in imperfection, transience, and incompleteness. The mud circle illustrates this outlook, encouraging us to find profundity in what may seem ordinary or flawed. The blemish on a teacup, the age lines on a weathered face, the garden that has strayed from perfection. These imperfections possess their unique wisdom and beauty, waiting to be acknowledged with open eyes. Zen Master Dogen articulated, "If you cannot discover the truth where you are, where do you expect to find it?" This echoes the Buddha's wisdom and cautions against externalizing our quest, searching outward for what can only be uncovered within. The structures we create, the rites we perform, the texts we delve into, all serve merely as pointers to the moon, and not the moon itself. On a practical level, how can we integrate the inside of the mud circle into our lives? We can begin by cultivating a curious awareness toward the seemingly trivial moments we often ignore. Whether it's washing dishes, standing in line, grappling with exhaustion, or navigating conflict, instead of viewing these as interruptions to our spiritual journey, we might recognize them as the foundation of the practice itself. The Buddha articulated, "My teaching isn't a philosophy. It is born from direct experience." This emphasizes that genuine wisdom is not the product of intellectual acquisition, but is realized through immediate engagement with life. The mud on the road offers a direct encounter that observing temple ceremonies as an onlooker simply cannot provide. As you settle in for the evening, reflect on the mud circles in your own life, the unremarkable, challenging, or uncomfortable facets you might routinely try to evade or alter. Can you approach these moments with the same mindfulness that you would for a stunning sunset or a profound spiritual lesson? Can you feel the latent wisdom waiting to be unveiled in these unforeseen corners? As the Buddha taught, all experiences arise from the mind, are guided by the mind, and are shaped by the mind. When we meet even the muddiest of situations with an open, inquisitive mindset, we can turn them from barriers into gateways to deeper comprehension. Now, let us shift our focus to a tale about the essence of true mastery. This is the narrative of the supreme archer. In ancient China, there existed a master archer acclaimed across the realm for his exceptional prowess. His arrows unfailingly found their target, and his fame spread far and wide. Even the emperor had acknowledged the archer's gifts, granting him accolades and wealth. One day, an aspiring young archer approached the master. Having heard tales of the elder's remarkable skill, the young man was eager to unveil his secrets. "Master," the youthful archer said with a deep bow, "I have honed my archery skills over many years and attained some ability, yet I yearn to achieve the pinnacle of mastery like you. Please impart the technique that ensures your arrows are never off target." The master archer regarded the young man with contemplation. "Join me at dawn tomorrow on the mountain," he instructed. "Bring your bow and arrows." The following morning, the enthusiastic apprentice arrived at the designated spot where the master waited. Rather than a target range, they stood on the edge of a cliff with a vast chasm beneath them. The master guided the young archer to the precipice, where the ground plummeted sharply hundreds of feet into the valley below. At this harrowing location, the master took his stance, drew back his bow, and released an arrow into the distance. He then turned to the student and said, "Now you take your turn." The young archer approached the edge with trepidation. Glancing down into the abyss, he felt his heart race and his knees tremble. His hand shook as he attempted to nock an arrow. After several futile tries, he stepped back. "I cannot shoot from this point, Master," he confessed. "The height gives me vertigo, and the fear unsteadies my hands. How can I hit a target when I am frightened of falling?" The master nodded and replied softly, "This is the secret you seek. The distinction between us lies not in technique or strength. When I shoot, the only things that exist are the arrow, the bow, and the target. There resides no fear, no thoughts of success or failure, no sense of being observed or praised. There isn't even a self who is shooting. What is present is only the perfect harmony of archer and target." He continued, "You miss your target not due to a lack of skill, but due to division within yourself. One part of you aims the arrow, while another part fears falling, hopes for success, concerns itself with failure, and remains self-aware. When you can shoot with your entire being, free from fear or longing, you will uncover the mastery you seek." The young archer bowed deeply, realizing he had gained a lesson far more enriching than any technique: the archery of presence. He had been guided towards the true essence of mastery, not just in the art of archery, but in the entirety of existence. The teachings of the Buddha state, "Your mission is to uncover your world and then fully dedicate yourself to it with all your heart." This wisdom encapsulates the core lesson of the master archer. Authentic mastery across any discipline is derived not solely from technique, but from a profound connection to the present moment and the dissolution of the ego that breeds separation within us. Why is it that we find it challenging to attain this state of singular focus? Zen Buddhism identifies several elements that distract our awareness. The first is our ingrained self-awareness. that aspect of our mind that detaches from experiences, evaluating our actions, comparing ourselves to others, and seeking approval. This observing self imposes a false split between us and our actions. The second factor is our attachment to results, our obsession with victory or defeat, accolades or criticism, rewards or consequences. When we release an arrow, either literally or figuratively, while fixating on whether it will find the mark, we inject tension and doubt that obstruct our inherent capabilities. The third element is our fear. Our instinct for survival, while crucial in genuinely hazardous situations, often triggers unnecessarily during ordinary circumstances. The young archer's dread of stumbling symbolized the many ways we hold back from total commitment due to perceived threats to our safety, reputation, or self-image. In Japanese Zen, this state of effortless absorption is termed mushin, no mind, or zanmi, samadhi. It is a state where the separation between subject and object dissolves, allowing action to unfold unhindered by self-critical thoughts. Athletes refer to it as being in the zone. Artists experience it as being swept away by their craft, and musicians find it in becoming one with the sound. The Buddha remarked, "Just as a formidable rock remains unmoved by the tempest, so too the wise remain unaffected by praise or criticism." This steadiness does not stem from rigidity, but rather from a complete immersion in the current task, unbothered by how we are perceived by others or whether we conform to some external benchmark. Zen practice nurtures this ability through both structured meditation and mindful participation in everyday activities. In Zazen, the act of seated meditation, we practice relinquishing thoughts, repeatedly returning to simple awareness. In disciplines such as archery, calligraphy, tea ceremonies, or martial arts, we train to bring this same essence of focused presence to our actions. In your own experiences, you have likely encountered moments of such complete engagement. Perhaps while partaking in a sport, creating art, solving a complex problem, or even during routine tasks like washing dishes or wandering through nature. In those instances, the separate self fades away and we enjoy the bliss of unified presence. The lesson of the master archer resonates throughout everything we engage in. Whether you are conversing, working on a task, nurturing a child, or preparing a meal, can you devote your entire being to what you are doing? Can you recognize when you are fragmented? One part attentive while another part is preoccupied with worry, planning, or judgment. As the Buddha imparted, there is no pathway to happiness. Happiness itself is the path. The contentment we yearn for does not lie in achieving outcomes, but in the quality of presence we offer to each moment. Tonight, as you prepare to rest, can you embrace sleep with the undivided focus of the archer? Instead of striving to force slumber or fretting about sufficient rest, can you simply be present with the sensation of lying down, feeling the weight of your body against the bed, and attuning to the natural rhythm of your breath? Recall the Buddha's wisdom: peace originates from within. Do not pursue it externally. The serenity you seek is available through the full acceptance of this moment exactly as it is. Let us delve into a story about discovering solutions by approaching challenges in a new way. This is the tale of the Zen master and the enormous stone. In a quaint village surrounded by mountains, a crucial road was partially obstructed by a massive boulder that had tumbled from the cliffs above. The stone was so immense and heavy that despite their best efforts, none of the villagers could move it. Several robust individuals attempted to push it, but it remained unyielding. Others tried to fracture it into smaller pieces, but the stone was unusually resilient, and their tools only scraped its surface. Some endeavored to dig around it to roll it aside, but the ground was too hard, and the stone was embedded too deeply. After numerous unsuccessful attempts, the villagers resolved to seek assistance from a Zen master residing in a nearby monastery. The master was renowned for his wisdom and his innovative approaches to complex problems. When the villagers recounted their difficulties, the Zen master agreed to examine the stone. A crowd gathered as the elderly master made his way slowly to the obstacle. Everyone anticipated he would present a profound technique or orchestrate a better strategy to shift the heavy boulder. Upon reaching the stone, the master circled it deliberately, observing it from all perspectives with great care. The villagers waited anxiously for his insight. Finally, the master halted, looked at the gathered crowd, and posed a question. Why must the stone be moved? The villagers were taken aback by the inquiry. Because it obstructs the road, one responded. It complicates travel and slows down our carts and wagons. The master nodded thoughtfully and replied, "The stone blocks one route, but perhaps it leads to another." He then guided the villagers in clearing and creating a new pathway around the stone. With many hands working in unison, they swiftly formed a smooth alternate route that gracefully curved around the boulder. This new path not only resolved their challenge, but the massive stone transformed into a landmark, a natural monument that endowed their village with a distinct identity. Children played on it. Elders sought relief in its shade. And over the years, the villagers learned to appreciate the very obstacle they had once viewed as a hindrance, the journey of wisdom and letting go. Before departing, the Zen master addressed them, stating, "Some challenges are insurmountable. The true wisdom lies in learning to coexist with them or to navigate around them. What seems to obstruct your path might actually guide you toward a new destination." Buddha conveyed that just as the fletcher skillfully shapes and straightens his arrows, so must the master guide his wandering thoughts. This teaching emphasizes the significance of skillfully steering our thoughts, not forcing them down predetermined tracks, but gently guiding them toward novel solutions. The villagers had become so fixated on relocating the stone that they failed to perceive alternative methods. Why do we frequently become entrenched in a singular viewpoint regarding challenges? Zen Buddhism highlights various cognitive patterns that confine our perspective. The first is our clinging to expectations, our rigid beliefs about how situations should unfold. The villagers believed that the only viable solution involved either moving or dismantling the stone, as that would revert the road back to its original condition. The second is what Buddhists identify as fixed mind or rigid thought patterns. This is the inability to modify our strategies when encountering resistance. When our initial attempts yield no success, we often simply double down on the same tactics rather than stepping back to reassess our entire methodology. The third is our lack of scrutiny regarding our assumptions. The villagers viewed the stone as the root of the issue rather than examining their relationship with it. By redefining the problem, we realize that the stone isn't the challenge. Rather, it's our desire for a clear path that causes the trouble. The Zen master illuminated new avenues that were previously invisible within the original perspective. Zen practice enhances mental adaptability through koans, paradoxical anecdotes or inquiries that cannot be resolved through conventional logic. Renowned koans, like "What is the sound of one hand clapping?" or "What was your original face before your parents were born?" intentionally disrupt logical reasoning, prompting the mind to function in unconventional ways. This training fosters what Zen refers to as lateral thinking, the capability to tackle problems from surprising angles. Buddha elucidated, "We are molded by our thoughts. We become what we think." When our thoughts get ensnared in familiar patterns, our solutions become equally constrained. By nurturing mental flexibility, we unlock ourselves to innovative approaches that might be right before our eyes. Reflect on a challenge you've been facing, perhaps an issue in a relationship, a work-related dilemma, or a personal hurdle. Have you been persistently trying to move your obstinate stone, applying the same strategy again and again with minimal success? What would occur if, akin to the Zen master, you stepped back and re-evaluated your foundational beliefs about the obstacle? The Japanese concept of ma, the space between things, offers further insight. Occasionally, the solution does not lie in the individual elements but in the interplay between them. The villagers discovered their answer not through solely viewing the stone or the road as isolated entities, but by reconsidering the dynamics of their relationship. Tonight, as you contemplate the challenges in your life, experiment with the Zen master's mindset. Pose this question to yourself: what if this obstacle isn't something to be eradicated, but rather a component to be integrated? What new journeys might it unveil before you? Remember Buddha's wisdom. Regardless of the difficulties of the past, you can always start anew. Every moment presents a fresh opportunity to perceive with clarity and uncover solutions that lie beyond our conventional understanding. Now, let us delve into the tale about the power of release and the freedom it offers. This is the narrative of two wandering monks. Two Buddhist monks, Tanzan and Aikido, once explored a muddy road in the countryside during a rain-soaked season. Abundant rains had created numerous flooded spots on the path, complicating their journey. As they approached a curve, they encountered a young woman adorned in a silk kimono and sash, unable to traverse a large muddy puddle obstructing her way. She stood at the edge, clearly anxious about how to proceed without soiling her beautiful attire. Without uttering a word, Tanzan approached the woman, lifted her gently in his arms, carried her across the muddy expanse, and set her down safely on the solid ground. The woman expressed her gratitude with a bow and continued on her journey. The two monks continued forward in silence for several hours. Eventually, unable to suppress his thoughts any longer, Aikido spoke up. "Brother Tanzan," he said, "we monks are not supposed to approach women, especially those who are young and attractive. It's perilous. Why did you carry her?" Tanzan replied with calm composure, "I left the girl by the riverbank. Are you still holding on to her?" Aikido was struck into silence, suddenly realizing the mental load he had been bearing for hours. Not a physical woman, but the burden of judgment, worry, and mental unrest. While Tanzan had addressed a momentary need with kindness and then returned completely to their shared journey, Aikido had been ruminating on the episode long after it had passed. Buddha advised, release the past, let go of the future, and be free of the present, and you will find your way to the farthest shore of existence. This principle encapsulates Tanzan's wisdom perfectly. He recognized that authentic freedom is derived not from strictly following external rules, but from fostering internal liberation, the capacity to respond suitably to every situation and then move on without clinging to attachments. Why do we, like Aikido, frequently carry unnecessary mental weights? Zen Buddhism identifies a few key contributors to our tendency to cling to what we ought to release. First is our proclivity for rumination, repeatedly reliving past occurrences we cannot alter. This mental habit drains energy that could be better utilized in the present and often exacerbates negative emotions such as anger, guilt, or anxiety. Second is our fixation on rules over principles. Aikido was so preoccupied with the literal interpretation of the monastic regulation concerning avoiding women that he overlooked its underlying essence: true clarity in stillness. Cultivating a clear mind and pure intention is essential. Tanzan recognized that true compassion sometimes means stepping outside conventions, understanding that genuine purity is found in the absence of selfish desires, rather than strict adherence to rules. The third aspect is what Buddhists refer to as papanka, the tendency of the mind to elaborate excessively. A single thought can lead to a cascade of others, weaving intricate narratives that exist solely in our consciousness. The initial observation in Aikido ignited hours of unnecessary internal dialogue filled with concerns over appropriateness, risks, and the behavior of peers, all forms of self-created suffering that were ultimately unnecessary. Zen practice is designed to help us notice when we are burdened by problems that are not ours to carry. Through meditation, we hone our ability to watch our thoughts without being swept away by them. We come to distinguish between constructive contemplation and counterproductive rumination. Moreover, we nurture the capacity to continuously return to the simplicity and liberation offered in the present moment. The Buddha wisely stated, ultimately, three things truly matter: how deeply you loved, how gently you lived, and how gracefully you let go of what does not belong to you. This wisdom encourages us to reflect on the burdens we might be carrying that no longer benefit us. Whether it's resentments from the past, anxiety about what the future holds, or judgments toward ourselves and others, there is much that weighs us down. In the realm of Japanese Zen, there exists a principle known as sesshin, which translates to touching the mind-heart. During intensive meditation retreats, participants have the opportunity to identify what unnecessary loads they've been carrying and discover the lightness that comes from releasing these burdens. This act of letting go does not involve forgetting or dismissing our experiences. Rather, it is about not allowing them to become barriers to fully embracing the present. Throughout your daily activities, pay careful attention to the weights you're holding onto long after they should have been set aside. This could manifest as revisiting past conversations, worrying over a mistake, or clinging to a grudge. Much like Tanzan, can you respond appropriately to what each moment asks of you and then return to the now without residue? The Buddha remarked, "Joy does not diminish when it's shared." In a similar vein, our peace of mind is not reduced when we release what no longer needs to be borne. As you wind down this evening, I invite you to try setting aside the mental loads you've been shouldering throughout your day. Visualize placing each worry, unresolved matter, judgment, or source of distress gently on the ground beside you. They will still be there in the morning if you choose to pick them back up. But for tonight, allow yourself to experience the lightness and expansiveness that comes from traveling unburdened, even if just for a single night. Remember Tanzan's insight. Genuine freedom is not found in evading life's muddy waters, but in traversing them when necessary, and then continuing onward with a heart unencumbered. Now, let us delve into a tale that illustrates the strength of inner stillness, the cricket in the temple. In a lively Japanese metropolis, there existed an ancient temple, its stunning golden roof shining brightly under the sun. Amid the clamor of contemporary life, be it the buzz of traffic, ongoing construction, or throngs of tourists, a profound sense of tranquility permeated the temple's walls. One day, a young musician came to visit. Having immersed himself in both music and meditation, he was intrigued by the quality of silence that enveloped this sacred space. Settling quietly in a corner of the main hall, he closed his eyes and concentrated on his ability to hear, hoping to grasp what made this silence exceptional. Surprisingly, amidst the sporadic footsteps of visitors and the distant urban din, he discerned a faint rhythmic sound that was almost too subtle to notice. Intrigued, he traced the sound back to its origin and found a small cricket nestled comfortably within a tiny crevice of one of the venerable wooden pillars. The musician was astonished. How could such a diminutive being make itself heard in such an expansive area? Seeking answers, he approached an elderly monk who was tidying the temple floor and inquired, "Esteemed one, have you noticed that a cricket resides in that pillar?" The aged monk beamed a smile. "Ah, you've recognized our little companion. He has inhabited the temple for many years. But how is it that such a quiet sound can be detected in this spacious temple with the city's noise surrounding it?" The musician wondered. The monk paused, setting aside his broom, and signaled for the young man to follow him to the temple's entrance. Reaching into his robe, he retrieved a single coin. "Observe," he instructed, before dropping the coin onto the stone surface. At the sound of its fall, nearly every visitor in the packed temple turned their head in curiosity. The monk then turned to the bewildered musician and stated, "People tend to hear what they listen for." He explained, "The coin generates no more sound than a cricket, but it captures attention as money resonates with a language everyone is conditioned to recognize. The cricket sings both day and night, yet most overlook it because they aren't attuned to such sounds." He elaborated, "Those who quiet their inner turbulence can perceive what others fail to notice, not merely crickets, but the subtle whispers of wisdom that constantly echo beneath the chaos of our daily lives. Genuine silence isn't the mere absence of sound. Rather, it is the presence of focused awareness." The young musician bowed deeply, comprehending that he had gained a lesson far more precious than any musical technique. He had been shown the distinction between merely hearing and truly listening, and between outer quiet and authentic inner stillness. The Buddha imparted, "The one who is patient is the mightiest warrior." This lesson resonates deeply with our ability to achieve inner calmness. The most significant battles often occur not against external foes, but against our own inner turmoil, the incessant chatter of thoughts, judgments, desires, and fears that drown out the gentle wisdom available in every moment. Why do we find it challenging to attune ourselves to the crickets in our lives? Zen Buddhism identifies several factors that contribute to our internal noise. Primarily, our conditioning to prioritize certain stimuli over others. Just as nearly everyone noticed the coin as it fell, while few paid attention to the cricket song, we can learn to redirect our focus and embrace the subtleties that enrich our experience. Hearing the cricket. As we navigate through life, we find ourselves instinctively drawn to momentous events, strong voices, and pressing issues, often neglecting the quieter occurrences that may carry profound insights. The second aspect is what Zen philosophy refers to as monkey mind. This restless, uneasy quality of our awareness swings from thought to thought, seldom lingering long enough to uncover the deeper truths that lie beneath the surface. This incessant internal dialogue acts as a barrier between us and our genuine experiences, clouding reality with layers of interpretation and analysis. The third factor is our waning ability to marvel and be truly present. Young children naturally tune in to the sounds of crickets, the tiny movements of ants, the shifting shapes of clouds, and other subtle wonders, as they have yet to dismiss the seemingly trivial. As we mature, we frequently find this ability for unmediated perception slipping away, causing us to overlook the extraordinary aspects hidden within the mundane. Zen practice fosters what may be described as dynamic stillness. It's not about the absence of thought, but rather an awakened state of receptivity that enables us to see beyond our typical thought patterns. Through meditation, we learn to recognize when we are entangled in our mental chatter and gently bring ourselves back to the simplicity of the present moment. This practice doesn't aim to stifle thoughts, but to enhance our ability to perceive what exists beyond and amid them. As the Buddha stated, all that we are is a result of what we have thought. The mind is everything. What we think we become. When our thoughts are inundated with incessant noise, we too become chaotic, distracted, fragmented, and unable to tap into the deeper wisdom that silence provides. In Japanese aesthetics, there exists a notion known as ma, which signifies the meaningful pause or void that gives shape to the whole. In music, it's the silence that exists between the notes which creates rhythm. In conversation, it's the thoughtful pauses that lead to deeper comprehension. In life itself, it's within the tranquil intervals of receptivity that we often uncover the most profound insights. The cricket in the temple symbolizes all those subtle voices of wisdom that are perpetually present beneath our conscious awareness, the intuitions we choose to ignore, the natural cycles we bypass, the quiet alerts we dismiss, and the delicate beauty we fail to notice. By nurturing inner silence, we allow these voices to emerge, offering direction and clarity that remain hidden from the noisy mind. As you settle into the stillness of this moment, can you tune in beyond your thoughts to the subtle crickets of awareness? You might discover the rhythm of your breath, bodily sensations you typically overlook, or intuitive insights about your life circumstances. As Buddha taught, the quieter you become, the more you are able to hear. Within this inner stillness, we realize that the wisdom we seek has been present all along. We merely have not been quiet enough to perceive it. Now, as we continue to delve into the teachings of Zen Buddhism, let's consider a story that reveals the significance of being fully present. This is the tale of the Zen master and the strawberries. A Zen student approached his master, troubled and anxious. "Master," he expressed, I have devoted 3 years to learning Zen, yet my mind remains agitated. When I meditate, thoughts overwhelm me. When I endeavor to be mindful throughout my day, I am constantly sidetracked by worries about tomorrow and regrets over yesterday. How can I attain peace? The master listened intently and replied, "Follow me. There is something I would like to show you." He guided the student out of the monastery, leading him along a narrow mountain trail. They walked in silence for close to an hour until they reached a high precipice that overlooked a stunning valley below. A river meandered through lush forests and fields, sparkling in the warmth of the afternoon sun. The master gestured for the student to sit at the edge of the cliff. As they settled comfortably, the master retrieved 2 ripe strawberries from within his robe, placing one in front of each of them. "Eat," he instructed, lifting his strawberry. Though puzzled by this seemingly trivial advice in light of his pressing spiritual dilemma, the student complied. He picked up the strawberry and took a bite. The flavor was remarkable, sweet, tangy, and richly aromatic. Though he had consumed strawberries countless times before, this one tasted entirely different. As they enjoyed the fruit in silence, the master noted the look of astonished joy on the student's face. Upon finishing, the master inquired, "Tell me, while you were savoring the strawberry, where was your mind?" The student contemplated this for a moment. "It was right here," he answered. "I was fully immersed in the taste of the strawberry." And during that time, the master probed, "Were you burdened by thoughts of the past or future? Distracted by worries or regrets?" "No," the student replied, a flicker of understanding beginning to illuminate his mind. "There was just the strawberry." The master beamed. "This is the tranquility you desire. It is not achieved by eliminating thoughts or reaching some extraordinary state. It is found in fully engaging with whatever is before you, be it a strawberry, your breath, a task, or even a challenging emotion. When you are present, past and future cannot affect you. They reside solely in thought. And as thought dissolves into pure experience, peace arises naturally." "But," the student argued, "the strawberry was easy to be present with since it brought me joy. What about when I encounter pain or difficulty?" "A valid question," nodded the master. "The practice remains the same, though it may certainly be more demanding. Whether faced with a strawberry or a snake, joy or sorrow, praise or blame, presence is always accessible. The essence of what you encounter may change, but the quality of your awareness does not need to. This is the remarkable liberation of Zen practice." The student bowed deeply, appreciative of the lesson. From that moment on, he approached his spiritual practice with a fresh perspective. Instead of striving to rid himself of thoughts or reach a serene state, he concentrated on being fully present in each moment. Enlightenment unveiled, the journey within. Bringing full attention to each moment, each activity, and each breath, he discovered, to his astonishment, that the tranquility he had long sought was accessible all along within the simplest experiences of his life. The Buddha imparted, "Do not linger in the past. Do not fantasize about the future. Focus your mind on the present moment." This wisdom points towards the actual pathway to serenity, not via evasion of our current reality, but through total engagement with it. The strawberry symbolizes any mundane moment that, when confronted with absolute presence, transforms into something remarkable. Why does the struggle to remain present persist so strongly within us? Zen Buddhism recognizes several tendencies that distract us from the now. Firstly, our habitual time travel. The mind's inclination to sway incessantly between what has been and what may come, habitually dissecting past events or speculating on future possibilities. This mental oscillation occurs so continuously that we hardly acknowledge it, yet it consistently diverts us from genuine experiences. Secondly, there's our evaluative mindset. The mind's automatic classification of experiences into labels such as pleasant or unpleasant, desirable or undesirable, significant or unimportant. This relentless appraisal incites a subtle resistance to reality as we mentally grasp for what we prefer while pushing away what we find unappealing. Thirdly, there's our pursuit of extraordinary experiences. The misconception that tranquility or joy must arrive in a certain form with unique attributes distinct from our ordinary existence. This misguided belief causes us to neglect the deep beauty and wholeness present in simple experiences, like relishing a strawberry. The Japanese concept of ichigoi, meaning one time, one meeting, encapsulates the uniqueness of each non-replicable moment. It serves as a reminder that this specific experience, this breath, this sensation, this interaction, will never transpire again in the same manner. Upon recognizing this truth, presence shifts from being a practice to an inevitability, as we naturally desire to engage fully with the unique gift of every moment. Zen practice cultivates this skill for presence through both structured meditation and daily life activities. In Zazen, or seated meditation, we consistently notice when our mind has drifted and gently return our focus to the simplicity of our breath and posture. In our daily lives, activities such as walking, eating, tidying up, or working present opportunities to re-engage with presence. The Buddha stated, "The secret to health for both mind and body is not to lament the past, fret about the future, or anticipate difficulties, but to wisely and earnestly live in the present moment." This insight reminds us that presence is not merely a spiritual endeavor, but the cornerstone of well-being across all facets of life. As you settle in tonight, can you infuse your pre-sleep routine with the same quality of presence one experiences while eating a strawberry? Can you feel the weight and texture of your body nestled against the bed, the rhythm of your breathing, the gradual relaxation of your muscles? As the Buddha taught, wherever you find yourself, be there wholly. Within this complete presence lies the peace that has always been there, waiting for our undivided attention to uncover it. Let us now listen to a tale about dismantling the barriers to our true essence. This is Polishing the Mirror. A young monk sought guidance from his Zen master after years of earnest dedication. Despite his sincere commitment to meditation and learning, he felt that enlightenment remained distant. "Master," he articulated, frustration bubbling in his voice, "I have diligently practiced for 7 years. I adhere to all the guidelines, meditate each day, and delve into the sutras with devotion. Yet, enlightenment seems as far away as it did when I started. Where am I faltering?" The wise master gazed at the monk with empathy. Rather than respond directly, he led the young practitioner to a storage space at the back of the monastery. In that room, cloaked in dust and obscured by piles of scrolls and ceremonial tools, sat an ancient mirror. Once resplendent and reflective, its surface was now completely cloaked by years of grime, dust, and tarnish. "Can you see this mirror?" the master inquired. "Yes," replied the monk, puzzled by the seemingly irrelevant question. Was this mirror birthed from the dust that blankets it? The monk frowned. "No, certainly not. The mirror exists beyond the dust." "Exactly. The dust simply conceals what is inherently present. If one wishes to glimpse their reflection in this mirror, what must they do?" the master continued. "They would need to clean it, to wipe away the dust and polish its surface," the monk deduced, beginning to grasp the direction of the lesson. The master nodded and handed the young monk a gentle cloth. "Please clean this mirror." Day after day, the monk dedicated himself to scrubbing the ancient mirror. The layers of accumulated grime from decades resisted his efforts. He experimented with various methods: water, oil, fine ash, specialized polishing agents. Gradually, with patient and steady commitment, the mirror's surface began to shine through. After many weeks of devoted labor, the mirror regained its full clarity, its surface now radiant and reflective. Upon completion, the master arrived to assess the restoration. Observing the brilliantly polished mirror, he queried, "Did your endeavors create the mirror's reflective nature?" "No," the monk answered. "The mirror always possessed the capacity to reflect. My work merely lifted the veil that hid this intrinsic property." "Just so with your Buddha nature," the master said gently. "Enlightenment is not an achievement or creation born from your practice. Your true essence, clear, radiant, and perfectly mirroring reality, has always been present. Your path is about removing the obscurations that veil what has forever been within. The dust symbolizes your attachments, aversions, and misconceptions, all mental patterns that muffle your natural clarity. Meditation, precepts, and study offer the means to cleanse away this obscuring layer." Of the cool breeze against his skin, the moment deepened, and he felt a sense of peace enveloping him. The master smiled gently as they walked, sensing the shift in his disciple's awareness. "Remember," he said, "the aim of study is not comprehension but awakening." The disciple nodded, absorbing the simplicity of this truth. He realized that in his quest for knowledge, he had overlooked the essence of practice, simply being present. The journey of understanding is often less about what we know and more about what we experience directly. Moments of confusion can lead to profound insights when we stop grasping for answers and allow ourselves to simply feel the world around us. As they approached a small pond, the master paused, gesturing towards the still water reflecting the moon above. "What do you see?" he asked. The disciple looked closely, noticing the shimmering image of the moon mirrored in the water. "I see the moon," he replied. "But if the water were agitated, you wouldn't see it so clearly," the master continued. "This stillness is much like your state of mind. When agitated with thoughts and concepts, it becomes cloudy, obscuring your true nature. It's in quietude that your true essence can be revealed." The disciple understood now, recognizing that clarity comes from stillness and presence, not relentless pursuit of intellectual understanding. In those quiet moments, the disciple felt a deeper connection to the teachings, experiencing them as living truths rather than mere concepts to be dissected. Each step they took became a part of the practice, a movement toward the heart of simplicity, where knowing and being merged seamlessly. The experience unraveled the layers of confusion, revealing the profound truth that the essence of enlightenment is already within. All one must do is to clear away distractions and let the natural clarity shine through, much like wiping the dust off a mirror to reveal one's true reflection. As they returned from their walk, the night sky was dotted with stars, each one a reminder of the expansive universe and their place within it. The disciple felt gratitude swell within him, a feeling of unity with all. "Thank you, Master," he finally spoke. "I see now that the teachings are like guides, but the experience is where truth lies." The Master nodded, affirming the realization. Indeed, continue to practice with a gentle heart and an open mind. Remember, the path is not about reaching the end, but about experiencing each moment fully. With that, both the Master and disciple walked back, the moonlight illuminating their way, a constant reminder of the clarity that exists beyond mere understanding. The path of experience. In a moment of stillness, he felt the gentle caress of the evening breeze. For the first time, he realized that true wisdom does not arise from merely collecting ideas, but from embracing the immediate experiences that those ideas indicate. The Buddha articulated this sentiment beautifully, stating, "My teaching is akin to a hand pointing towards the moon. Do not confuse the hand for the moon." This insightful guidance cautions against our human inclination to cling to spiritual doctrines instead of allowing them to lead us to an authentic understanding of reality. Why is it that we so easily mistake the hand for the moon? Zen Buddhism identifies various reasons contributing to this frequent misunderstanding. Firstly, there is our entrenched habit of conceptual thought. From an early age, we are conditioned to interpret the world through concepts, classifications, and abstractions. This conceptual framework becomes so solidified that we often confuse our mental constructs with the reality they strive to represent. Secondly, our societal conditioning emphasizes the accumulation of knowledge over experiential truth. Especially within educational frameworks, we are praised for gathering and structuring information rather than for achieving genuine insight or an embodied sense of understanding. This mindset can carry over to our spiritual journeys, where we may inadvertently treat enlightenment as another piece of knowledge to be attained. Third, there's the allure of certainty offered by concepts compared to the unpredictability associated with direct experience. Theories, doctrines, and concepts provide comfort and a sense of mastery. They can be understood, classified, and owned by the mind. In contrast, direct experience often thrusts us into the vast uncertainty of existence, where the foundations of being transcend our mental frameworks. The Japanese expression shikantaza, meaning just sitting, encapsulates the essence of Zen's direct approach. Instead of grappling with ideas about reality, we simply sit, permitting direct experience to manifest without interference from our conceptual minds. This practice embodies the essence of gazing at the moon instead of analyzing the finger. In Zen, even teachings regarding non-attachment to teachings can transform into a finger mistaken for the moon. This is why Zen frequently employs paradox, silence, or unexpected actions to shake us out of our conceptual thought and direct us towards experiences that transcend verbal expression. A teacher holding up a flower, delivering an unexpected shout, or the sudden crack of a stick on the floor all function to jolt us out of intellectual comprehension and into immediate awareness. The Buddha once said, "If you light a lamp for another, it will also illuminate your path." This teaching serves to remind us that the doctrines we hold serve to guide our way, not to become objects of fixation. When we utilize teachings wisely as navigational aids rather than end goals, they naturally usher us toward the clarity they intend to reveal. In your own journey of growth and self-exploration, pay attention to moments when you might be more focused on fingers than moons. You might find yourself engaged in theoretical debates about a teaching while missing its actual application, or collecting spiritual ideas and insights without allowing them to reshape your lived experiences. Or perhaps you're busy comparing various paths rather than immersing yourself fully in the one currently before you. As you settle into your awareness tonight, can you release all notions about relaxation, sleep, or even the narratives you're hearing? Can you transcend the fingers of instruction to reach the moon of direct experience? As the Buddha taught, the entirety of mindfulness entails this. Whatever you engage in, be fully aware of it. This straightforward direction suffices if we focus on where it points us rather than fixating on the pointer itself. Now, let us reflect on a story illustrating our relationship with challenges and barriers. This tale is about a farmer's horse. In a quaint village cradled by gently undulating hills, there lived an elderly farmer noted for his equanimity. Regardless of circumstances, whether good or bad, he consistently maintained a calm demeanor, often responding to any news with, "We'll see." One day, the farmer's sole horse, vital for plowing his fields and transporting crops to market, broke through the fence and vanished. Upon hearing of this unfortunate event, the neighbors gathered at his home to express their sympathy. "What dreadful luck," they cried. "Your only horse is gone. How will you manage your farm now? This is truly a tragedy." The old farmer listened to their concerns and simply replied, "We'll see." A week passed, and the farmer's horse returned to the farm, but it was not alone. It had led back a herd of wild horses that had followed it. Now, this farmer, who had only owned a single horse, suddenly found himself with a dozen awe-inspiring animals in his pen. When the neighbors learned of this development, they hurried back to the farmer's home, this time to celebrate his remarkable fortune. "What incredible luck," they declared. "Now you possess many strong horses. Soon, you will be the wealthiest farmer in the village." The farmer expressed gratitude for their enthusiasm but again responded, "We'll see." The next day, the farmer's only son began training these wild horses. In the process of taming one particularly spirited stallion, he was thrown and sustained a severe leg injury. The neighbors once more gathered, now offering their condolences for this unfortunate turn of events. "How tragic," they exclaimed. "Your son is injured and unable to assist with the farm work. With the harvest approaching, this is a disaster." Again, the farmer acknowledged their sympathy but replied, "We'll see." Just a week later, military officials arrived in the village. drafting all able-bodied young men to participate in a war declared against a neighboring realm. It was a perilous conflict, and everyone understood that many of those taken might not return. Due to his broken leg, the farmer's son was overlooked and permitted to stay home. The neighbors, whose sons had been recruited, approached the farmer in tears, expressing both relief and sorrow, reflecting the unpredictable nature of life's events. The tale of the farmer and the Zen master. The villagers expressed a mix of pity for themselves and awe for what seemed to be the farmer's extraordinary fortune. The farmer listened to their conflicting emotions with empathy, responding simply with, "We'll see." The Buddha taught, avoid judging based solely on appearances. Seek the truth beneath all forms. This wisdom is precisely demonstrated in the farmer's tale. His consistent remark of "we'll see" signifies a deep comprehension that no event is to be assessed in isolation. Its implications and consequences continually emerge within a tangled web of causes and conditions. Why do we hastily compartmentalize experiences as either good or bad? Zen Buddhism highlights our mind's habitual binary thinking. It tends to categorize all experiences into simplistic groups such as favorable, unfavorable, desirable, or adverse. This automatic classification provides a semblance of control but often blinds us to the intricate and fluid nature of reality. The Japanese term fubika refers to a mind that does not split experiences into like and dislike categories. It describes a mentality that remains receptive to the entire range of unfolding events, without immediately filtering them through pre-existing preferences. The farmer exemplifies this trait by embracing each occurrence with spacious awareness rather than impulsive judgments. Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh speaks of interbeing, the profound interconnectedness of all things. Nothing exists in isolation. Everything is linked in countless ways. The farmer's narrative illustrates this principle with clarity. The unfortunate loss of his horse resulted in a fortunate increase in horses, which subsequently led to the unfortunate injury of his son, who then avoided military service. Each event flowed seamlessly into the next in a continuous chain of cause and effect. The Buddha stated, "If we could see the miracle of a single flower clearly, our lives would radically change." This teaching underscores the depth and complexity present even in the simplest occurrences. When we perceive without the filter of our impulsive judgments, we realize that nothing is as straightforward as it initially seems. Each experience holds multiple layers and harbors potential developments that we cannot foresee. Zen practice nurtures this ability to suspend judgment by cultivating awareness of our automatic responses. We train ourselves to recognize when our minds hastily label experiences as good or bad, desirable or undesirable. By allowing space around these initial reactions, we develop the farmer's capacity to engage with life through an open, "we'll see" mindset, rather than with a closed attitude of certainty. Practically, this approach does not imply passivity or indifference. The farmer actively took appropriate actions at each juncture, searching for his lost horse, aiding his son's recovery, and adapting to evolving circumstances. Yet, he did so without the added suffering that arises from premature judgment and emotional reactivity. The Buddha taught, just as rain falls equally on the righteous and the unrighteous, do not burden your heart with judgments, but bestow your kindness impartially. This principle extends the farmer's equanimity to our interactions with all living beings. By postponing our rush to judgment, we create an environment for compassion to arise organically. As you reflect tonight on recent events in your life that you have categorized as fortunate or unfortunate, can you hold them through the farmer's "we'll see" lens? Can you recognize that the full significance and repercussions of these experiences are still unfolding? As the Buddha noted, nothing is permanent. Everything is subject to change. Being is always in the process of becoming. Within this understanding lies the wisdom needed to approach life's continuous transformations with grace and equanimity. Now, let's delve into a story illustrating the essence of true wisdom. This is the tale of the cup of tea. A respected university professor, well known for his expertise in philosophy and religion, visited a Zen master. The professor had thoroughly studied Zen literature and authored numerous academic works on the subject. He was eager to meet a living master of the Zen tradition, but also keen to showcase his own insights. Upon arriving at the master's humble abode, the elderly Zen master welcomed him with warmth and invited him to have a seat. Before their discussion commenced, the master proposed they share some tea. The professor nodded in agreement, anticipating an engaging philosophical dialogue following the customary tea service. As the master prepared the tea with focused, mindful movements, the professor took the opportunity to elaborate on his understanding of Zen. He quoted various texts, dissected different schools of thought, and drew comparisons between Zen and other philosophical doctrines. Speaking at length, he showcased his extensive knowledge, while the master listened in silence. Once the water reached the perfect temperature, the master placed a cup in front of the professor and began pouring the tea. The professor, still immersed in his discourse, momentarily acknowledged the tea but quickly resumed his discussions. The master continued pouring even after the cup was filled to the brim, causing tea to overflow onto the table and seep into the professor's lap. "Stop!" the professor exclaimed, leaping to his feet. "The cup is already full. No more can fit." The Zen master paused, then turned his gaze to the professor. "Like this cup," he said, "you are filled with your own opinions and speculations. How can I impart Zen to you unless you first empty your cup?" The professor was rendered speechless. At that moment, he comprehended that all his accumulated knowledge about Zen had become a barrier to actually grasping Zen itself. His cup brimmed with concepts, theories, and second-hand insights, leaving no room for direct experience or new understanding. Humbled, the professor bowed to the master. "I realize now that I know nothing of Zen," he admitted. "Please teach me as if I were a novice." The master smiled and replied, "In the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities. In the expert's mind, there are few. The path to wisdom, a lesson in emptiness and perspective. Let us envision an unfilled cup." From that pivotal moment onward, the professor approached his academic journey with a transformed outlook. Instead of striving to fill his already brimming cup with more information, he focused on emptying it, consciously setting aside his assumptions, theories, and intellectual grasp to make way for direct experiences and authentic wisdom. The Buddha asserted, "In the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities, but in the expert's mind, there are few." This principle emphasizes the paradoxical essence of genuine wisdom. It often necessitates releasing our preconceived notions to unveil what truly exists. The professor's transformation, pivoting from a state of fullness to one of emptiness, evolving from intellectual knowledge to open awareness, encapsulates this essential change. Why do we so easily conflate information with wisdom? Zen Buddhism highlights several patterns contributing to this widespread confusion. The first is our societal tendency to prioritize intellectual knowledge over other forms of understanding. From our earliest education, we are conditioned to gather facts, theories, and concepts, frequently at the expense of nurturing intuitive, embodied, or experimental insights. The second pattern involves the ego's fixation on knowing. Having firm opinions and extensive knowledge can morph into an integral part of our identity, a mechanism through which we assert our value and position within the world. The act of acknowledging our ignorance, of emptying our cup, may feel like a threat to this identity, evoking resistance to the very vulnerability necessary for genuine learning. Lastly, we often experience discomfort with the notion of emptiness itself. Western societies, in particular, typically perceive emptiness as a void, a deficiency that needs to be filled. Yet, in Zen, emptiness, or samatha, is regarded as a rich space brimming with possibility, akin to the empty cup prepared to receive fresh tea. The Japanese concept of mushin, or no mind, signifies a state of readiness and openness derived from relinquishing rigid ideas and preconceived notions. This does not imply thoughtlessness, but rather a light engagement with thoughts without attachment, thus allowing room for inspiration and insight to flower naturally from a void. Zen practices cultivate this empty cup quality in various ways. Meditation helps us recognize when we are ensnared by concepts, guiding us gently back to direct experience. The concept of beginner's mind, Shin, encourages us to face each situation with the curiosity of encountering it anew. Furthermore, the tradition's focus on direct transmission beyond words directs us to understand insights that surpass mere intellectual knowledge. The Buddha's teaching, to know and not to act is not yet to know, underscores the distinction between cognitive understanding and embodied wisdom. True knowing reshapes how we conduct our lives, transcending thought alone. Until knowledge informs our actions and interactions, it remains simply information, tea that never manages to fill the cup. As you embark on your own learning journey, be mindful of moments when your cup might be overly full to accommodate anything novel. It could be that during a conversation, you presume to know what the other person is about to express. Or perhaps as you read a book, you sift every idea through the sieve of your existing beliefs. Or when confronting a challenge, you assume understanding due to previous experiences. These full cup instances inhibit fresh perspectives and authentic growth. As you settle into awareness tonight, try practicing the emptying of your cup. Release your thoughts about what you know concerning relaxation, about your identity, about these teachings. Open yourself to the direct experience that can emerge beyond your preconceived notions and anticipations. As the Buddha advised, if you empty your boat of water, it will glide smoothly and swiftly. In a similar vein, when we relinquish fixed thoughts and biases, we navigate life with enhanced grace, openness, and insight. Let us now transition to a narrative that explores perspective and the limits of judgment. This tale leads us to the gate of paradise. Once, there was a samurai known far and wide for his remarkable prowess and steadfast commitment to the samurai code. After years devoted to serving his lord, engaging in numerous battles, and earning substantial acclaim, the samurai began to wrestle with profound questions regarding life, death, and the true essence of his martial path. Hearing about a wise Zen master residing in a secluded mountain temple, he resolved to embark on a journey to seek the answers to his inquiries. Following many days of arduous travel, he finally reached the temple gate. The master, an elderly monk of humble stature and unpretentious appearance, stepped forward to greet him. The samurai bowed with slight reverence and introduced himself, proudly enumerating his many achievements and titles. Then he posed the question, "Master, I have come to learn about heaven and hell. Can you reveal these realms to me?" The Zen master looked up at the formidable warrior and erupted into hearty laughter. "You refer to yourself as a samurai," he remarked mockingly. "Just glance at yourself. You are naught but a pretentious fool dressed in costumes. What lord would desire such a ludicrous figure to guard him? You should run along and cease wasting my time with queries befitting a child." Upon hearing the master's words, the samurai's face burned with fury. His pride thoroughly bruised, he swiftly reached for his sword, drawing it with astonishing speed, lifting it above his head in preparation to strike down the insolent monk. At that very moment, with the blade hovering in the air, the master fixed his calm gaze into the warrior's eyes and softly stated, "That is the gate of hell." The samurai halted. In that instant of clarity, he recognized the master's intention. The monk had intentionally provoked him to unveil just how swiftly pride, fury, and violence could manifest, crafting a hellish realm within his own psyche. With a sense of humility washing over him, the samurai gradually lowered his sword and sheathed it, bowing deeply to the master in appreciation for the profound lesson. As he rose from his bow, the master met him with compassionate eyes and said, "And that is the gate of paradise." In that moment, the samurai comprehended that heaven and hell were not distant regions, the illumination of internal realms. In the journey of existence, we often find ourselves entering realms created not by the afterlife but by our mental states influenced by choices, reactions, and consciousness. The teachings of the Buddha remind us, our present existence stems from our thoughts of the past, and our current thoughts shape the future. This wisdom reveals the fundamental truth of the samurai's experience. Both suffering and liberation emerge from within us through our responses to life's circumstances rather than being forced upon us from the outside. Why do we tend to build our own states of torment? Zen Buddhism points to recurring patterns that lead to this phenomenon. The first is our tendency to react. The instinctive, almost mechanical way we approach triggers with fixed modes of emotions and actions is telling. The samurai's rapid transition from pride to anger illustrates this reactivity, showcasing how a slight provocation can induce profound pain almost instantaneously. Next is our fixation on self-identity, our clinging to how we perceive ourselves and how we expect others to view us. The samurai's self-image as a noble and esteemed warrior made him susceptible to the master's intentional jabs. When this identity came under threat, turmoil erupted immediately in an explosive fury. Thirdly, there is our disconnection from awareness. the manner in which we detach from our observing consciousness when we are overwhelmed by strong feelings. In that moment of fury, the samurai lost sight of his deeper inquiries and spiritual ambitions, becoming wholly consumed by his reactive state. The Japanese concept of Fudo Shin, or immovable mind, illustrates a quality of balance that remains unshaken by outside disturbances or conditions. This does not signify a rigid denial of emotions, but rather a centered consciousness that perceives feelings without being dominated by them. The samurai caught a glimpse of this state when he sheathed his sword, stepping back from the impulse towards reactivity and into conscious decision-making. Zen practices foster this state of awareness through various methods. Meditation helps us witness our arising reactions without the immediate compulsion to act upon them. Mindfulness throughout our daily activities allows us to recognize our triggers and patterns as they surface. Moreover, teachings about non-self encourage us to grasp our identities with a lighter touch, diminishing the reactivity born from threatened self-perception. The Buddha articulated, "You are not penalized for your anger, rather, you are harmed by it." This lesson highlights the self-imposed nature of our suffering. The tormented realms we encounter are not punishments for our reactions, but the direct manifestations of those reactions themselves. Conversely, moments of bliss arise not from some reward, but from the natural outcomes of awareness, compassion, and presence. In your own experiences, take note of the portals to torment and joy as they manifest in everyday moments. For instance, perhaps you react with annoyance when a slow driver obstructs your path, crafting a moment of torment filled with frustration and resentment. Alternatively, you might respond with patience and empathy when a child errs, thereby opening the gate to joy through your compassion. These daily choices accumulate to shape the predominant atmosphere of our minds. As night approaches and you prepare for rest, pay attention if your thoughts begin to construct hellish realms through anxiety, planning, or replaying the frustrations of the day. Can you recognize these as self-generated states rather than absolute truths? Can you gently sheathe your sword as the samurai did, electing awareness over reactivity? As the Buddha said, clinging to anger is akin to seizing a hot coal with the intent of tossing it at another. Ultimately, you are the one who gets scorched. By releasing that coal, choosing the gate of elation over the gate of torment, we find that freedom is ever within reach, just a conscious decision away. Let us delve into a tale about discovering wisdom through direct personal experience rather than through external pursuits. This is the story of Ryoan's moon. In ancient Japan, there was a Zen monk named Ryoan, known for his unadorned lifestyle and deep insight. He resided alone in a modest hut on a mountainside, owning little and indulging in no luxuries. Despite this apparent simplicity, his face exuded a profound joy and contentment that many wealthier individuals envied. One evening, a thief entered Ryoan's dwelling only to discover that there were no valuables to steal. Ryoan, in quiet meditation in the corner, heard the intruder rummaging through his scant possessions. Realizing what was occurring, Ryoan spoke gently without turning to face him. "You have traveled far to see me," he remarked, "and you shouldn't leave with nothing. Please, take my clothes as a gift." Taken aback by the unexpected gesture, the thief accepted the monk's worn robe and swiftly exited, bewildered by the unusual exchange. Ryoan sat there naked, gazing out the window as the thief vanished into the darkness. Observing the full moon brightening the landscape, he sighed softly and mused, "Poor soul, I wish I could offer him this beautiful moon." This simple narrative unveils a profound reality about true wealth and the essence of authentic happiness. While the thief sought material possessions, Rioan had unearthed something infinitely richer: the ability to appreciate the beauty of the moon, the abundance of the present moment, and the freedom derived from detachment from things. The Buddha shared, "Let us rise and express gratitude, for if we have not learned much today, at least we've learned a little. And if we have learned little, at least we've avoided falling ill. And if we have fallen ill, at least we have stayed alive. So let us be thankful." This teaching captures Rioan's outlook, rooting contentment not in accumulating external possessions but in recognizing the value of what is already present. Why do we frequently seek joy in misguided places? Zen Buddhism points to several factors that divert us in our quest for fulfillment. Initially, there's our conditioned desire for acquisition, the belief that acquiring more will bring us happiness. The journey of awakening, discovering inner richness. In our relentless pursuit of satisfaction, we often lean on the belief that our sessions, experiences, status, or accomplishments can provide lasting fulfillment. This mindset, continually reinforced by consumer culture, leads us to seek outwardly instead of delving into the wealth available within ourselves. Additionally, we tend to blur the lines between pleasure and happiness. Pleasure is derived from fulfilling desires, but it's transient and frequently succeeded by fresh cravings. In contrast, true happiness stems from our connection to what already exists, our ability to appreciate, engage with, and derive meaning from our current circumstances. Thirdly, we frequently overlook the wonders of the mundane. Like the thief blinded to the moon's radiance, we often fail to recognize the extraordinary gifts that are accessible to us at every moment. The miracle of breathing, the splendor of nature, the warmth of relationships, and the very capacity for awareness itself are all treasures that remain unnoticed due to our obsession with what we lack. The Japanese philosophy of Wabi-Sabi encapsulates this idea, embracing beauty in simplicity, imperfection, and natural cycles, rather than in luxury or permanence. This aesthetic celebrates the authentic, the time-worn, and the modest, rather than the sleek, impressive, or lavish. Rioan's humble dwelling, while devoid of any material wealth, was abundant in Wabi-Sabi. Its profound beauty is revealed to a spacious and appreciative mind. Zen practices nurture our ability to appreciate the ordinary through mindfulness. Engaging in activities such as mindful walking, eating, or listening trains us to embrace the richness found in simple moments. Meditation facilitates an understanding of how our incessant longing for something beyond the present inhibits us from experiencing what is here now. Moreover, the tradition's focus on simplicity fosters a deeper appreciation for what is instead of an endless quest for more. The Buddha stated, "Health is the greatest gift. Contentment is the greatest wealth. Faithfulness is the best relationship." This wisdom directs us to the true sources of well-being, internal qualities of mind and heart rather than external possessions. Rioan embodied this teaching, finding wealth not in material items, but in his appreciation for the moon, his generosity, and his freedom from attachment. In your own life, take note of when you drift into the thief's mindset, overlooking the freely available treasures while chasing after something else. Perhaps you find yourself scrolling through social media, feeling discontented while the beauty of the present goes unacknowledged. Or you concentrate on what's lacking in a relationship instead of valuing what is being offered. Alternatively, you might defer happiness until a future success arrives, missing out on opportunities for joy in the present. This evening, as you settle into a state of awareness, can you adopt Rioan's viewpoint? Can you identify the moon in your own life? The beauty, wonder, and wealth that require no pursuit because they are already present? As the Buddha imparted, the path is not in the heavens. The path is within the heart. The satisfaction we yearn for isn't found in what we can acquire, but in understanding and appreciating what is generously offered in every moment. Now, let's transition to a tale about discovering our true direction. This is the narrative of selecting the appropriate vessel. Once, a young seeker journeyed to a riverside monastery celebrated for its wise Zen masters. After exploring multiple spiritual traditions and practices, he felt lost regarding which path to follow. Each teaching seemed to contradict the others, leaving him paralyzed by uncertainty. Upon his arrival at the monastery, an elderly master greeted him and patiently listened to his quandary. "Master," said the young man, "I've immersed myself in yoga, tried various meditation techniques, perused the sutras, participated in rituals and ceremonies, and even explored esoteric practices. Each tradition proclaims itself as the true route to enlightenment, but they diverge significantly. How can I discern which path suits me? How can I be confident that I'm not squandering my efforts or treading a false path?" The master smiled and led him to the riverbank, where several boats were moored, fishing vessels, cargo boats, small rowboats, and elegant sailing crafts. "Tell me," said the master while gesturing towards the boats, "which of these is the right boat?" The seeker, perplexed, responded, "The right boat for what, master?" "Precisely," nodded the master. "Without knowing your destination, how can you select the right vessel? Some boats are intended for fishing, others for transporting cargo, some for speed, and others for shallow waters. None is inherently better or worse. Each serves a unique purpose." The master continued, "Similarly, spiritual practices vary in their effectiveness. The key questions to reflect on are not which path is universally right, but rather which aligns with your personal journey. Where do you wish to go? What challenges do you face? What is your temperament? The responses to these queries will influence your choice of vessel." The seeker countered, "Surely, some spiritual paths must be superior. Some must lead to a greater truth." The master responded, "Tell me, is a fishing boat superior to a passenger ferry? Or is a sailing boat better than a rowboat? Each serves its role according to specific conditions and needs." Then, the master picked up a small stone and tossed it into the river. All these boats share a fundamental purpose: to traverse the water without sinking. In like manner, all genuine spiritual paths, despite their varied methods and focuses, aim to liberate us from suffering and illusion, awakening us to our true selves. Though the external forms may greatly differ, the inner essence converges. How, then, "Do I make my choice?" asked the young man. "By understanding yourself," replied the master. "Notice which teachings resonate with you, which practices yield results in your life, and which traditions feel like homecoming. Trust your direct experiences over abstract theories. Remember, the boat is not your destination. It is a means to carry you across the waters of life. Once you reach the other side, the waterways of understanding, on the distant shore, you won't find yourself hoisting the vessel on your back." The seeker remained quiet for a spell, absorbing these insights. At last, he bowed to the master, realizing that his journey was not about discovering the one true way, but rather about finding the route that would aid him in navigating the life's turbulent waters. The Buddha imparted, "I instruct in one principle and one principle only, the nature of suffering and the cessation of suffering." This principle underscores the practical essence of spiritual practice, its power to liberate us from needless pain, nudging us toward deeper freedom and kindness. Much like the boats mentioned earlier, various practices might employ diverse methods, yet their ultimate aim aligns with this fundamental objective. Why do we often find ourselves bewildered and at odds about spiritual pathways? Zen Buddhism highlights several reasons that contribute to this frequent confusion. The first is our inclination toward binary thinking, the tendency to categorize complex realities into two opposing groups: right or wrong, true or false, superior or inferior. This all-or-nothing mindset fails to acknowledge the diversity of effective approaches to enlightenment. The second challenge is our obsession with form over function. We become fixated on external practices, doctrines, or traditions rather than focusing on their tangible impact on our well-being. We may engage in heated debates about varying beliefs, while neglecting to ask whether a specific practice truly alleviates our suffering and enhances our wisdom and compassion. The third hurdle is our grasp for certainty, our yearning for absolute assurance prior to committing to a path. This quest for unshakable certainty can hinder us from fully embracing any practice long enough to realize its transformative potential. The Japanese notions of juriki and tariki, self-effort and external assistance, embody two fundamentally distinct pathways to spiritual practice. One emphasizes individual endeavor and discipline, while the other involves yielding to a force greater than oneself. Instead of viewing these as conflicting, Zen wisdom appreciates that distinct temperaments and circumstances might necessitate different approaches or even a blend of both. Zen practice itself resonates with this pragmatic ethos by prioritizing direct experience over dogma. A well-known Zen adage conveys this sentiment: if you encounter the Buddha on your path, kill him. An admonition against clinging to any fixed notion or authority, even one as venerated as the Buddha. Authentic Dharma is discovered not in fidelity to external doctrines, but in the direct realization of one's own Buddha nature. The Buddha remarked, "Accept nothing as truth, however venerable the source or whoever advocates it, unless it coincides with your own reason and logic." This teaching invites us to measure spiritual assertions against our direct experiences, rather than accepting them solely on the basis of authority. Much like choosing the correct boat for a journey, the selection of spiritual practices requires discernment in what genuinely meets our unique needs and circumstances along our personal development journey. Reflect on whether you found yourself entangled in confusion similar to the young seekers. Perhaps you felt inundated by conflicting spiritual philosophies, or you've been troubled by the pursuit of the singular authentic path among numerous possibilities. Alternatively, you may have hesitated to commit to a practice out of fear of making the wrong choice. This evening, as you bask in awareness, can you tap into the wisdom inherent in the boat metaphor? Are you able to recognize which teachings, practices, or methodologies have genuinely guided you across the turbulent waters of confusion to a place of clearer understanding and tranquility? As the Buddha advised, the entirety of the mindfulness path is this: whatever you are engaged in, be present to it. This straightforward instruction serves as a reminder that the essential quality of any spiritual path lies in its ability to awaken us to the present moment, the only place true transformation can take root. Let us delve into a narrative that illustrates the essence of true understanding. This is the sound of one hand. Hakuin was an esteemed Zen master hailing from Japan during the Edo period. He was known for his stringent teaching methods and for revitalizing Zen practice by emphasizing direct experience over mere intellectual grasp. Among the numerous koans, paradoxical queries or statements utilized in Zen pedagogy that Hakuin employed, his most celebrated one was strikingly simple. What is the sound of one hand? One day, a dedicated young monk approached Hakuin to immerse himself in study. After a period of preparatory training, Hakuin presented him with this koan. You must uncover the sound of one hand, the master instructed. Until that moment arrives, you shall glean nothing of Zen. The monk bowed and returned to meditate on this challenging query. After several days, he reappeared at Hakuin's quarters for a private session. Master, he proclaimed, I believe I have the answer. The sound of one hand is the sound of water flowing in a creek. Hakuin shook his head. No, continue your efforts. The monk went back to his contemplation. A week later, he returned once more. Master, I see it now. The sound of one hand is the sound of wind rustling through pine needles. No, Hakuin replied. That is still the sound of something. Go deeper. Time and again, the monk returned with various responses: the cry of a bird, the shiver of foliage, the distant toll of a temple bell. Each time, Hakuin dismissed his reply and sent him back to further his investigation. After months of diligent practice, the monk's comprehension began to evolve. He ceased trying to conjure a clever response and allowed the inquiry to permeate deeper than his conceptual mind. One morning, while absorbed in meditation, something shifted within him. He hurried to Hakuin's quarters. When Hakuin inquired, "What is the sound of one hand?" the monk answered not with words but through presence, a tangible, immediate demonstration transcending conceptual understanding. Hakuin smiled and nodded, recognizing that the monk had finally moved past the search for answers to experiencing the question itself as a portal to direct realization. The Buddha taught, "The finger points to the moon, but don't mistake the finger for the moon." Pointing to the moon isn't the moon itself. This teaching emphasizes the difference between understanding concepts, which guide us toward the truth, and actual realization, which is the truth itself. The monk's shift from intellectual responses to direct experience illustrates this critical transformation. Why do we so often confuse concepts with reality? Zen Buddhism highlights various patterns that lock us into conceptual understanding instead of allowing us to experience directly. The first is the conditioning we receive through education, which leads us to believe that comprehension primarily occurs through analytical thinking and verbal expression. This conditioning creates a preference for intellectual understanding at the expense of other forms of knowledge. Next is our disquiet with uncertainty. The mind tends to resist being in a space of not knowing or open awareness. When confronted with a question such as, "What is the sound of one hand clapping?" our instinct is often to generate an answer, any answer, instead of embracing the enriching space of inquiry itself. Lastly, we frequently isolate knowing from being, treating understanding as a possession instead of an embodiment. Authentic Zen realization involves not merely possessing the correct idea, but rather becoming that understanding through direct experience. In Zen, the Japanese word mu, meaning nothing or non-being, is utilized to transcend conceptual thinking. When a monk posed the question to Master Joshu of whether a dog has Buddha nature, Joshu famously responded, "Mu." This was not a negative reply, but a rejection of the question's premise itself. This response exemplifies Zen's method of moving beyond dualistic thought through direct pointing. The koans, such as the sound of one hand, are not riddles to be deciphered but instruments to exhaust the conceptual mind and unlock access to direct experience. They intentionally transcend logical reasoning, fostering conditions in which intellectual grasping yields to an alternative mode of knowing. The Buddha remarked, "Just as a solid mountain remains unmoved by the wind, so the wise are not disturbed by praise or criticism." This steadfastness arises not from intellectual insights but from direct realization, a knowing so profound that it changes the perceiver. While concepts can easily be shaken by counterarguments, direct experience possesses a solidity that transcends logical dispute. In your life, take notice of the distinction between conceptual knowledge and embodied understanding. You might intellectually grasp that life is transient. However, that knowledge remains merely theoretical until you confront the loss of a loved one or achieve a real understanding of mindfulness. Yet, this comprehension contrasts starkly with the immediate experience of existing in the present moment. As you settle into awareness this evening, can you transition from concepts surrounding relaxation or sleep into the actual experience of it? Can you relinquish expectations regarding what should occur and simply embrace what is unfolding? As the Buddha advised, don't just do something, sit there. This phrase flips our usual tendency toward action, inviting us to engage with a direct experience that transcends our incessantly busy minds. Now let's explore our concluding story, one that clarifies the path beyond yearning. This is the tale of the sacred mountain. In ancient China, there lived a young scholar named Li who dedicated countless years to studying the spiritual texts from different traditions. He pored over numerous sutras, committed sacred verses to memory, and engaged in discussions with wise masters. Yet, despite his vast knowledge, he sensed a fundamental gap, a direct experience of the truth that these teachings pointed to. Word spread that a renowned Zen master resided as a recluse on a sacred mountain, prompting Li to embark on a challenging journey to seek the master's wisdom. After several days of tough travel through dense forests and steep inclines, he arrived at the modest hut where the master lived. The elder welcomed him warmly, inviting him to rest after his long journey. Following a simple meal together, Li articulated the purpose of his visit. "Master," he began, "I have extensively studied spiritual teachings. I grasp the doctrines and philosophies, yet I feel as if I lack the essence. I seek to understand, what is the ultimate truth? What is the final aim of all spiritual quests? What defines enlightenment?" The master gazed at him with compassion and replied, "Before I respond, might you like some tea?" Li nodded, and the master stood up to prepare it. While the water heated, the master posed a question. "What did you observe while ascending the mountain toward my hut?" Li pondered. The path was steep and challenging, strewn with rocks and roots. At times, I required breaks to catch my breath. "Did you notice anything further?" the master inquired. "Yes," Li continued. "There were magnificent pine trees and vibrant wildflowers along the way. At one point, I crossed a stream with crystal clear water, and there were moments when the trees parted to reveal stunning views of the valleys below." "I see," the master said while pouring tea. "Now that you've arrived, what do you anticipate finding?" Li hesitated. "I'm not entirely sure. Perhaps a profound teaching or experience that will bring everything into focus. The ultimate truth that all texts hint at but never fully disclose." The master handed Li a cup of tea and settled beside him at the hut's entrance. From where they sat, the breathtaking landscape unfolded. Mountains rising in the distance, clouds drifting across the expanse of sky, birds gliding effortlessly on thermal currents. After sipping their tea in contemplative silence for a while, the master said, "The ultimate truth you pursue has been present in every step of your journey, in the effort of your ascent, in the beauty you appreciated, in the obstacles you encountered. It exists here, in this cup of tea, in the mountains around us, and in the awareness that encompasses all these lived experiences." The illusion of seeking. He explained, "There's nothing to achieve beyond what already exists. Enlightenment is not an exclusive condition apart from your usual experience. It's about recognizing the extraordinary within the mundane, identifying the sacred essence of every moment." The master pointed towards the vast landscape spread before them. "This mountain you revere holds no more sanctity than the ground upon which your dwelling stands. These trees hold no greater significance than those in your hometown. This moment is not fundamentally different from any other moment throughout your existence." Li appeared puzzled. If that's the case, then why undergo this arduous journey? Why engage in study and practice? The master beamed. The journey was essential not because the truth lay concealed atop this mountain, but due to your belief that it was. Sometimes, we need to exhaust our search before we can acknowledge what has always been present. The spiritual path isn't about discovering what's lacking. It's about witnessing what's already here. As they sat immersed in the serene beauty of the mountain evening, Li slowly started to grasp that the truth he had been pursuing wasn't found in convoluted doctrines or extraordinary experiences, but in the direct, unfiltered encounter with life, exactly as it unfolds in its ordinary wonder. The Buddha remarked, "If we could truly appreciate the miracle of a single flower, it would change our entire life. This wisdom indicates the transformative shift in perspective that occurs when we stop dismissing the mundane and appreciate the profound nature of what is inherently present. Lee's trek up the revered mountain symbolizes our widespread belief that truth resides elsewhere, demanding extraordinary situations or experiences to access it. Why do we so stubbornly believe that what we seek lies beyond our reach? Zen Buddhism highlights several patterns that sustain this illusion. First is our inclination towards idealization. We create perfect mental representations of enlightenment, tranquility, or fulfillment and then unfavorably compare them to our current experiences. This comparison guarantees dissatisfaction with what is already available. Second is what Buddhists refer to as spiritual bypassing, using spiritual concepts or practices to evade direct engagement with the challenging facets of everyday life. By positioning truth on a distant mountain, we create a convenient justification for not finding it in our daily situations. Lastly, there's our culturally ingrained habit of postponement, the belief that fulfillment is always in the future, contingent upon our achievements, acquisitions, or transformations. This mindset obstructs our recognition of the completeness accessible in the present. The Japanese notion of shikantaza, or just sitting, embodies the essence of the master's teaching. This practice requires sitting without any specific aim or focal point, neither seeking extraordinary experiences nor shunning ordinary ones. It serves as a radical affirmation that this very moment, just as it is, holds all the essentials for awakening. Zen Master Dogen observed, "If you can't find the truth right where you are, where do you expect to uncover it?" This wisdom challenges the assumption that truth, peace, or enlightenment exist anywhere other than here and now, or in an experience other than this one. Much like Lee's ascent of the sacred mountain, we tire ourselves seeking elsewhere what has never been missing. The Buddha stated, "It is in the nature of things that joy arises in a person free from remorse." This insight underscores the natural emergence of well-being when we cease dividing where we are from where we believe we ought to be. The cessation of seeking does not lead to emptiness but reveals the richness that seeking has obscured in our lives. Be aware when you fall into the pattern of thinking that what you want lies beyond your current reality. Maybe you believe peace will follow resolving a specific issue, or that connection will feel more genuine with different people, or that life will only feel complete once certain conditions are satisfied. Each of these beliefs subtly dismisses the present, overlooking the sacred mountain upon which you are already standing. As we conclude our exploration of these narratives, consider whether you can recognize that the tranquility you seek through listening is not separate from your current awareness. Can you sense how the wisdom encapsulated in these stories is not distant but immediately accessible in your own experience? As the Buddha imparts, peace arises from within. Do not search for it externally. The ultimate truth is not concealed on an exalted mountain or within ancient manuscripts, but within the miracle of ordinary awareness, the silent observer that has been with us throughout our shared journey. As we reflect on our time together, let's consider the path we have traversed through these timeless tales of wisdom. Each story has provided a unique glimpse of understanding, yet they all converge on the same fundamental truth. Peace, clarity, and awakening are available here and now, not at some future point or in special circumstances. The empty boat taught us to see when we project assumed meanings onto situations. The monk and the tiger illustrated how to find joy amid challenges in the present moment. The two arrows showed how we could avoid compounding our suffering on top of unavoidable pain. The mustard seed deepened our understanding of the universal nature of loss and transience. The farmer and the horse conveyed the wisdom of withholding judgment about life's fluctuating circumstances. We learned from the Buddha and the enraged man that we hold the power to choose whether to absorb the negativity that others present us. The monk with the teacup demonstrated that acceptance of impermanence enables a richer appreciation for life. The Buddha and the robe enlightened us about true generosity. The two monks and the river reminded us not to carry burdens long after they've served their purpose. The cricket in the temple emphasized the value of inner stillness that allows us to perceive subtle wisdom. The king and the jester revealed that contentment arises from fully embracing the present moment. The journey of understanding. In a world where we often seek to possess more, we encountered the Zen master and the thief, who revealed the remarkable impact of generosity. The master archer illustrated that true skill is achieved through complete focus and dedication. The heavy stone challenged us to adopt innovative approaches by re-evaluating our beliefs. The image of the empty cup urged us to engage with life in a state of openness rather than with preconceived notions. The farmer's response illustrated the value of maintaining balance and equanimity amidst life's fluctuations. Through the Zen master's tea, we learned that genuine comprehension requires us to empty our cups of biased perspectives. The samurai at the threshold helped us grasp that our mental landscapes shape our personal experiences of heaven and hell. Rioan and the moon echoed the sentiment that the most profound treasures are accessible if we simply take the time to perceive them. The right vessel guided us to select practices that resonate with our unique journeys. The sound of one hand uncovered the distinction between theoretical knowledge and first-hand insight. Lastly, the sacred mountain reminded us that the essence we pursue through spiritual endeavors is always present within our everyday lives. The Buddha imparted that there are three truths that cannot be obscured: the sun, the moon, and the essence of truth itself. As you forge your unique path, may the insights gleaned from these narratives accompany you, not merely as ideas to be recalled, but as invitations to embrace life with heightened awareness, empathy, and understanding. Thank you for joining us on this expedition from Moon Mind Temple. May you find peace and rest, awakening rejuvenated and carrying forth these ancient lessons into the dawn of a new day.